That's my point.
X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Well, I certainly am Ashraf Garda. Great that you're switched on, engaged, connected to the show, connected to me for the next 3 hours, and myself and my team, and so much to talk about. By the way, that question about the mood of a nation, national pulse, what is it? You can suggest your own five key indices we should measure ourselves with, right? And do that by WhatsApping. Probably that's the best way. WhatsApp, so you know that SMS, brother, let me get that right. WhatsApp, text, or voice notes. 0614 104 107. But you can certainly call in as well, and we'll get your thoughts on that too. So much to talk about today. I can tell you now, we absolutely have to talk about the unemployment rate. We have to talk about the issues of the NHI. We have to talk about the fact that Frank Chikane, the chairperson of the South African Anti-Apartheid Steering Committee for Palestine, they've come up with a statement at the completion. We have to talk about that and so much more. Every reason for you to stay tuned all throughout the show. So let's go first up to the big issue around the unemployment rate. You may have heard about it today. Statistics South Africa releasing its latest data. So unemployment increasing by 0.8%. You know, whether I know the number, they talk about 35%. Some can say that, that's the official rate. It really doesn't matter. What's the reality of it all? Now, whatever it is, the truth of the matter is that the trend is going upwards, and that is a huge cause for concern, because if the trend goes upwards unabated, how do we stop that? What needs to be happening now? So let's just check up. I want to check if we have on the line with us now Risenga Maluleka, who's the Statistician General of our country, as well as the head of Statistics South Africa. Do we have? I just want to double check. In fact, we do have the guest on the line. We do that. Right. So I should say Statistician General. Good chatting to you. You're live with the National Pulse.
Well, Ashraf, let me greet you and greet the SAFM listeners as always.
Much appreciated. I normally get a WhatsApp message from Pali Lahotla just about every second day. So this is a different conversation with another Statistician General of sorts. So it really is a privilege to talk to you, right? Having said that, we're talking in a disappointing time. You know, whenever there's a trend upwards on anything, that, as I'd mentioned in my preface, impacts negatively on the national pulse, isn't it?
Well, for starters, Ashraf, for me as a statistician general who is still in office, and any other statistician general, we don't carry the emotions of disappointment or disturbing when unemployment goes up, because the moment we start having emotional attachment to the numbers, we will start releasing those that we favor, and those that we don't favor, we don't release. And we'll have lost our independence, and the integrity of official numbers will be impaired. So for us is to make numbers. There's no big or small, not disturbing or what number. It's numbers. I'll leave it to commentators, Ashraf.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you give us the stories, we feel what we feel, right? And that you can't change either, right? So give us the numbers then.
What is happening is that as of the fourth quarter 2023, the number of people employed was sitting at 16.7. For the first quarter 2024, we went up by 22,000 people. We are sitting again still at 16.7 million. But the number of the unemployed in the fourth quarter 2023 were sitting at 7.9 million. The increase went up by 330,000 to 8.2 million. And since there is more of an increase in the number of the unemployed and a very lesser increase in the number of the employed, then the unemployment rate has gone up by 0.8 percentage points from where it was in the fourth quarter 2023 to 32.9% as of the first quarter 2024.
Now, just confirm this for us. Yeah, okay, carry on, continue.
Having said that, this is what we call the official unemployment rate, which looks at the narrow definition. When we bring in the discouraged work seekers over and above the 8.2 million, we bring another 3 million people discouraged. plus another 900,000 who didn't look for employment other than discouragement, other than for reasons of discouragement, but who said if jobs came, we would have taken them. We come to 12.1 million, and the 12.1 million gives us what we call the expanded unemployment rate, which we always release at State SA, and that expanded unemployment rate is sitting at 41.9%.
Okay, now you're not going to be emotional because you've made that point already from the outset. I can say ouch, and I can say relatively compared to other years of democracy, 30 years of democracy. Am I accurate in saying that's the highest in terms of the expanded rate of unemployment we've ever had?
The highest in terms of the expanded rate has been around shortly after COVID. You will remember that at the time of COVID, we had lost a lot of jobs, and 2 quarters after, about almost a year after the hardest lockdown, we were seeing a lot of discouraged work seekers because even then, remember, COVID lingered longer than we had thought. So there were times that we were sitting at almost about 43 point something percent of the expanded unemployment rate. It's the same with the unemployment rate official. There were times that we had gone almost to 33%.
Okay, now let's take a broader 5 or 10 year trend then. Is the 5 or 10 year trend downwards or upwards in terms of more unemployment or less unemployment?
What is happening is unemployment has been rising steadily, but let us start off with absolute numbers. As of about a decade ago, 2014 first quarter, we had about 5.1 million people unemployed, and I'm talking about your official, those that are actively looking for employment. As of now, 10 years later, we are sitting at 8.2 million people unemployed. But what we must understand is that a decade earlier, our population was not where it's sitting. We are now sitting at about 62 million people. Then a decade earlier, we were sitting slightly above 55 million people. So as our population increases, but also as people who were children or were young, very young to take up employment or younger than 15 a decade ago, are now 15 years or more. And if they are not schooled, they are looking for employment. They have entered the job market. Let me also say that one of the things that has actually increased a lot more from 7.9 to 8.2 million, particularly in this first quarter of 2024, is that there are people who were at school last year, in matric as well as at university, who have finished their studies and have now entered the job search market.
Okay, which is normal. It's an annual thing, right? And normally the economy would be able to consume them because the economy would grow much bigger. So they now are also on the unemployment list.
I can't say the economy would grow much bigger. We still will come back and report on that because the economy is sensitive to internal issues and external issues. So leaders, be it in business or in politics, can say something and the rand goes south, and as it goes south, then it affects other issues, import, export, and the like. So that I can't say that naturally the economy will grow. We will come back and report on that.
Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to share related to this that you think is significant?
Well, one of the things that I need to say is that we have, out of the 8.2 million, 75%, that is about 6.2 million, are in long-term unemployment. That is, they've been unemployed for a period of a year or more, whereas only 2 million have been unemployed for less than a year. So we are seeing some levels of chronic unemployment here.
Okay, and that's a huge concern. So here's the last thing to you, right? And again, picking up the point about you being less emotional, but more logical in terms of facts and figures. How should, because we reflect so much of the national pulse on this platform, right? How should the average South African internalize what they've just heard? You know, when they go home tonight over supper, how should they be talking about this issue in terms of the what's next? Because there must be somebody in that home who's unemployed?
The one thing that every South African should do is to say that we need to see the economy growing so that they can take up employment. But I'm limited on that, Ashraf, in that my responsibility is to make the numbers available, and I have to treat less in the space of commentary of what should happen. I leave that to commentators like yourself, for which I thank you so much for allowing us to reach to members of the public and leaders of industry and government so that they can be sufficient debate.
Well, let's leave it at that. I think you're absolutely spot on. So that would be the number one conversation over supper. I think it will be the number one conversation over the next 3 hours on this show. And thank you for your time. Rusenga Maluleke, Statistician General of South Africa, also Head of Statistics South Africa. And there you have it. Perhaps on the basis of what you've just heard, and the trend is still upwards very much so around unemployment and expanded unemployment, these are two important questions for you. Not what do you make of it. That's obvious. You don't like it. I don't like it either. Perhaps the more important question we should be asking is how those who have been unemployed, how do you survive unemployment? I'm talking about personal stories and anecdotes. How do you survive unemployment? And those who have not been unemployed, who are now nearing that position of possible unemployment, what's your advice to them on surviving unemployment? Any thoughts, opinions, let me know. 0614 104 107 via WhatsApp, voice note or text, or to call in 086 000 2032. And also you can comment on what I suggested. 5 key indices that reflects the mood of the nation. That is effectively our national pulse. What should be that daily measurement? You give me the 5. I've probably dished out 10, but you can give me 5. And let's see if we can agree on 5 over the next couple of days. This is the National Pulse.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Are you blowing your paycheck on car insurance every month? Monica, 39 from Three Rivers, pays just 1,515 Rand a month for her 2018 BMW 320i.
None of the insurance companies has come near to the price I'm paying. I am happy at insurance. I'm going nowhere.
SMS out to 30754 now for a quick quote that could save you hundreds every month. You'll also find out about included benefits like panic assistance and help it out 24-hour roadside assistance. Yusuf, 45 from Tegadal, pays just 700 Rand a month for his 2021 VW Polo.
Help it out. Took the family up to go and see the snow and I got stuck. The service was quick, even though it was in a very remote area. Absolutely phenomenal service from our insurance.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
The Democratic Alliance is on a mission to rescue South Africa. Together with the Multi-Party Charter for South Africa, we have a real chance to bring in a new government that works. We can turn things around, but we cannot do it without you. In this election, the stakes are simply too high. Every single vote is going to count. A strong DA can rescue South Africa. Join the rescue mission on the 29th of May. Vote DA.
This political party advertisement was paid for by the political party concerned. The views expressed in this advertisement are those of the political party and not those of the SABC.
And we would buy 500 cars and we would buy 500 more. So sell your car for the best price and we won't think about it twice. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da-da. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
Support Slipper Day on the 31st of May and help children like me fighting life-threatening illnesses to reach their dreams. Visit reachfordream.org.za and make a difference. And don't forget to step into your slippers on Slipper Day. Reach for a Dream, inspiring hope. This is an SABC-supported initiative.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
Going to chat to Reverend Frank Chikane in just a moment or so. Let's get some comments regarding, what is it that reflects the national pulse, the mood of the nation? And understandably, we do have responses, right?
Ashraf, my national pulse is so low, so sad. I'm living in Bushbuck Ridge, around area called Castile. It is the first week that we are not going to school, teachers and learners, because people are on strike demanding a road. But it's only teachers and learners that are not going to school. This is the fourth week. I don't know what can we do about that. How can you assist us?
Well, there you are. I tell you what, let's make a note of that. We need to find out more about it, like what would break that impasse. So there's a strike to build a road, and as a result of that, the strike is now 4 weeks. So teachers, learners not going to school. And clearly that caller from Bushbuck Ridge, well, his heart is broken as per the National Pulse. Here's another. Right.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. The key point of the things which is supposed to be happening each and every day to the human being of South Africa. Firstly, give the people the job. The second one, good health system. The third one, it's a better education for everybody. The fourth one, safety in our country. The fifth one, it's to close the border in order the foreigners and everybody to come in South Africa with permit. I think that will be a successful in our country. Thank you.
Right, got that. We'll get more calls. We'll certainly get more calls and WhatsApp, text or voice notes over the course of the show. Some people sending pictures of where they are listening to the show. That is absolutely great. Love it when you do that. You can also tweet us or post on SAFM's Facebook page using the hashtag #TheNationalPulse. Tag me as well, Ashraf Garda. Right, let's get to another very important issue. My guest today is the Reverend Frank Chikane, who's the chairperson of the steering committee of what is called now the anti-apartheid committee that for Palestine that was staged, that conference that was staged in Johannesburg, South Africa over the last weekend. In fact, Reverend Chikane, I appreciate your time. You're live on the National Pulse.
No, thank you very much. I just say that the call you got there about Castile, it's my ancestral home. I must call and find out what's happening there.
Well, I think let's connect you guys. I think we need to do that. Absolutely. Thank you.
But let's talk about Palestine.
Much appreciated. Right. Look, a lot has been spoken about Palestine and Israel, and I'm not going to go down to the history. I'm going to go to the reality of you had a conference at the weekend, an anti-apartheid conference for Palestine. A Joburg statement was read out at the end. Give me maybe the 4 key bullet points that emerged from that statement.
No, let me make it. Say that the conference was an overwhelming success. We planned to have ultimately 250. We ended up with 300 and 450 at the opening session. We had people from different parts of the world, Latin America, North America, Europe, Asia, North Africa, north of us. It was very representative. And it was people who are highly skilled, learned, know about the Palestinian matter, including lawyers. And we went through all the challenges. And the statement is very clear that we adopted. Declaration, stop the genocide now. You can't continue with this night genocide that's happening. I was shocked yesterday to listen to somebody from the White House saying there's no genocide in Gaza. I mean, it's outrageous. More than 35,000 people have been killed in the last 7 months. And many of them are children, women, elderly people. I can't understand how the United States will say it's not genocide. The International Court of Justice has actually taken an indicator that says that it is plausibly a genocide, but they have to go through the process. So,
okay. So what came out of it? What I'm keen on now is certain resolutions were passed in terms of that statement. What are the key issues?
Firstly, stop the genocide. Secondly,
end the occupation so that the war ends. And thirdly, that we let people who have been displaced, thrown out of their homes to return back, because Israel is not allowing refugees to return back to their homes. We are saying they need to return back home, and then it is in terms of the law that you should not build settlement within the area you occupy, because international law does not allow that.
Okay, now in terms of...
I could go through, but in terms of action, all that is in the details. In terms of action, we have decided that the people who are in that conference should go back home, mobilize people in their homes in terms of the countries, the regions they come from. We need to apply maximum pressure, a boycott, disinvestment, and military embargo on Israel to make sure that it stops. But it won't stop unless the United States stops.
All right. So now, what I'm saying, the call to say, end the genocide, ceasefire now, that could have been done wherever one was sitting, anywhere in the world. Why the need for a coming together at a conference in South Africa, mobilizing so many people? What was the rationale behind that level of mobilization?
The idea was to establish a global anti-apartheid movement like the one we had in South Africa. And that global anti-apartheid movement is the one that's going to force the government that support the genocide and occupation of Palestinians, robbing them of their rights, to change. And they won't change on their own. We learned from the apartheid experience. America supported the apartheid, Britain, France, Germany, and the lot.
Okay.
But it is the people in the U.S. who took on the U.S. government until they adopted the sanctions law against apartheid.
All right,
we need to do that.
Okay, just lastly, you've mentioned the USA maybe more than once as a key ally of Israel that hinders what you're trying to do. How would you know, now that you have this anti-apartheid movement, and this time around it's anti-apartheid movement for Palestine, how would you know you would have succeeded in the short term?
Firstly, it's because we have agreed on it, because we had to consult. Secondly, is that they are going to meet in their home base, and the U.S. Lord said they're going to meet very soon, develop strategies. We will then link up again so that we can strengthen that structure, make sure that it has got leadership. So we'll end up with an interim steering committee of the anti-apartheid movement global now. The present one is South Africa.
Okay, and that's where...
Yeah, and then the real results are going to be the campaigns. Like the students in the USA, you can see South Africa has already started, Verse has started. We're going to mobilize the world. We're mobilizing humanity against this inhuman activity that is happening in Gaza, West Bank. Yeah.
And we will track that story. Reverend Frank Chikandi, now the chairperson of the South African anti-apartheid conference for Palestine that took place in South Africa, Johannesburg, over the weekend. Let's get to the news headlines now with Madubi.
Thank you very much, Ashraf, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines, emergency services in Tshwane have discovered 2 bodies floating in water in a lift shaft while assisting a man who fell to the basement of the building in the Pretoria CBD. Representatives of the local government association SALGA have arrived in Georgia to provide support to the local municipality following the collapsed building disaster. And the Prime Minister of Qatar, which has mediated between Hamas and Israel, says negotiations for a ceasefire in Gaza have stalled. Details of these and other stories coming up at 4.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good afternoon. I'm going to say there's some rain across Joburg, across parts of Ekurhuleni. You might be in other parts of the region thinking, what is Rob talking about? It's nice and sunny conditions. It's a funny day. A lot of Gauteng bathed in sunshine, but the sort of eastern side, the N3 corridor, it's absolutely belting it down. So a slow go along the N3 between Limbro Park and Galuli's interchange. Drive carefully through the rain. If it's wet where you are, please. Cross into Durban, there's been a significant backlog of truck congestion today around the Umbilo, Rossborough areas, routes like the M7. We've got lining up trucks going down through Rossborough towards South Coast Road, and then a big sort of backlog of stationary trucks between Bayhead Road and the M7 along that South Coast Road section. Staying in Durban, the Bel Air Road, very heavy both directions around Chief Abelatuli through the roadworks, and this is not a good sign. We saw this yesterday afternoon in Nanda Road at Parlock. No traffic lights by the looks of things. It is already fairly chaotic. Outbound from CK Lake on Inanda Road, inbound from Newlands, N2 North, queuing up as you come off at Mgena Road, moving up towards Inanda Road. It was pretty chaotic there yesterday. It looks like it's just loading up for a rerun today. Cape Town, Philip Kusana Drive, the M3 coming out of the city centre, very heavy out towards Hospital Bend, and some roadworks at Khayelitsha on the N2, out of town by Spine Road, pushing traffic delays back towards the R300. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Okay, Minister of Sport, go ahead.
A very good afternoon to you. Well, let's start things off with boxing this afternoon. 2 changes have been made to the new Boxing South Africa board that was announced today by Sports Minister Zizi Godwa. Dr. Koketso Tsebe and Dr. Luvuyo Precious Bayeni are the new additions to the 7-member executive. Other members who were named last year are Sakiwe Sodo, who is the only one who served on the controversial previous board, which finished its term in December. Chairperson Sfiso Shongwe, Romy Titus, Nandi Mheshe, and Luxolo September. The board is on a 3-year term starting immediately. Meanwhile, in football, Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola says that Man United and Chelsea would be challenging City and Arsenal for the Premier League title if success only came down to money spent. Guardiola doesn't agree with the notion that his team's success is getting boring and says that if money was the only reason for it, they would not be at the top. City are just 2 wins from a historic 4th successive Premier League title, and they face Tottenham Hotspur tonight. And although they have never scored a league goal at the new Spurs stadium, few expect City to drop a couple of points today. And talking about Spurs, Ange Postecoglou says that Tottenham will go all out to beat City today. A lot of talk ahead of today's game has centered around whether Tottenham fans will want their team to lose in order to deny Arsenal the chance to win the league for the first time in 20 years. And this is what Postecoglou had to say about this matter.
There's a game of football tomorrow night. What do you think is going to happen? What do you think we are going to do as a team, or any team on this planet? Are we going to just try and win? It's a simple, basic premise. Now, how that makes people feel, I'm not really fussed. I don't really care.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how they're going to perform against City tonight. Then in cricket, 2 experienced names were missing as the Netherlands named their squad for the Men's T20 World Cup. Veteran all-rounder Roelof van der Merwe and key batter Colin Ackerman were missing, with selectors replacing them with the more youthful choices of left-arm spinner Tim Pringle and hard-hitting opener Michael Levitt in their squad. Now, wicket-keeper batter Scott Edwards will once again lead the Netherlands in his regular role as skipper, with star all-rounder Bas de Leede among the key players for a Dutch side that will face South Africa, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and Nepal during the group stages at the T20 World Cup. In tennis, American Coco Gauff has confirmed that she's been trying to implement technical changes to her service, and that's why she's not been consistent on her serve throughout the clay season. So far, Gauff has made 35 double faults in 3 matches at the Italian Open, but the world number 3 says that the technical changes to her serve only need time to settle, and she's starting to see some sort of improvements leading up to the French Open. Then finally, in women in sports, we look at the Hollywood Bet Super League, the local semi-professional women's football league, and First Touch Ladies coach Moake Kana says that a professional women's league is an urgent matter. He believes that Mamelodi Sundowns Ladies has dominated the league since inception because of the resources they have, and that most teams are unable to compete with with them as they don't have the same financial muscle. He adds that the likes of First Touch Ladies and many other individually owned teams are struggling as the owners have to dig deep into their pockets.
The reason is clear. It's because if you can see First Touch and Copperbelt, they run the team from his pocket. They don't have a sponsor, and even the players, they don't get a stipend. Other teams now, they're improving. They get stipend, they get everything. Every player got recruited. You go where you got money. We tried, but we'll try. We'll remain here in Hollywood. Don't worry. If the league will professionalize, everything will be better because each and every player you get salary where you play. If you can see the past 4 seasons, team that is taking number 1 is only Sundowns because it got everything, resources. If the league got money of paying players and whatsoever, the league will be competitive. Every season, player move from one team to another to look green pasture. That's our problem on this league.
It's the reality of women's football in the country, and hopefully soon we'll get to see a professional women's football league. On that note, it is a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in at the next hour for SAFM Sport.
Just a quick comment. I heard you mention the Dutch team, and the first 2-3 names were all like very, very South African names. The cricket team, that is. Yeah. Just thought I'd mention that. But tonight, is a huge, huge game.
It's a big one.
Tottenham against Man City.
Tottenham against Manchester City. And remember, I did say yesterday that Pep Guardiola says if they don't win today, not a draw, not a loss, they need to win if they are to win the league as a whole. So
yeah, well, I think the numbers suggest that if they draw, let me get my facts right. They draw, they'd be level with Arsenal with equal goal. But goal difference, Arsenal is a better goal difference.
Yes.
So going into the last game, they'd have to win by the 3 goal difference to make up whatever the Arsenal score. You don't want to be in that position.
He doesn't want to be in that position.
He wants to win 4 in a row and break the hearts of every other club in the world that's in England who's won big time. But he's trying to do a Mamelodi Sundowns, I think.
Yep.
Or an Al Ahly, perhaps, yeah. Okay, we'll chat again soon.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Stellies gets it that they can never catch Masandawana, but they want to secure the second position. Meanwhile, Kabuyelo loves it on the summit and want to grab 3 points to extend their lead. This is the DSTV Premiership. Witness the unmatched passion of Mzansi's beautiful game. Stellenbosch FC versus Mamelodi Sundowns FC on Saturday, 18 May at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
My name is Njabulo Nzuza, the Deputy Minister of Home Affairs. During the successful voter registration weekend drives, we invited you, our valued clients, to come and collect your IDs. Thank you to the more than 65,000 citizens who came to our offices. We once again invite you to visit us during our extended office hours on Saturdays in May 2024 to come and collect your ID.
The Saturday Play. Who the hell does he think he is? Just because he's a teacher and he drives a car, he thinks he can take my girlfriend? Catch me, Tebogo Sefako Matenji, on the Saturday Play. Okay, Mike Mulitani. I know you have been sleeping with schoolgirls, but this time you have taken it too far.
Catch the Saturday Play between 9 and 10 p.m. only on SAFM.
Checking out a really cute tweet from Skara Tembele saying thumbs up, sharp to my picture of hosting today's show. You can check it out on my Twitter timeline, and hopefully SAFM Radio will retweet it as well. And there's Vincent Risimati in Bloemfontein, who's WhatsApped with a lovely picture saying, "Hi Ashraf, a bird's eye view of Bloemfontein is seen from the Naval Hill Game Reserve. I'm listening from here. Now, why am I not there? Wow, you got a fantastic view, Vincent Risimati. Thanks for that. Keep it coming, by the way. Pictures of wherever you are listening to the station, to the channel, all around the country. Let's, however, get to the other big issue, which is, in fact, there's 2 important issues we'll talk about. In a few minutes' time, we'll talk about a fascinating position where the International Union of Muslim Scholars and members of the Council of European Muslims have publicly endorsed the ANC in South Africa's election, which we're going to talk about just now. But first things first, Kolekani Mate with me, the CEO designate of Business Unity South Africa, that's BUSA, and we are talking to him because of the issue of this all-important NHI, National Health Insurance Bill, right? Kolekani, I appreciate your time. You're live on the National Pulse.
Hi, Ashraf. And there I was excited thinking that we were going to be discussing Manchester United.
You'll have to wait.
Because the two of us are the biggest fans of Manchester United.
I know. You'll have to wait a couple of years for us to celebrate, by the way, okay? Here's the thing. Many people, by the way, are celebrating the imminent NHI bill into law, but understand Business Unity SA are not doing that. What's your official position?
We are not celebrating, Ashraf, and there are several reasons why we are not. Firstly, as you would know that in our lawmaking process, the Constitution provides for a public consultation process, not merely as a procedural sort of tick box measure, but so that the views of the critical stakeholders can be taken into account and considered. What we've found here is that the views that were expressed by business, by various other stakeholders in the healthcare sector, as well as in academia, some unions, etc., were just not taken into account. And so that's one reason why we believe that simply signing this into law without considering the very valid concerns that were raised by stakeholders is really a concern for us as business. The other reason, Ashraf, why we are concerned about this is that there are some technicalities about what has been put out that we think just do not cut it. So, for instance, nobody has actually explained to South Africans how the NHI will be funded. Some numbers have been thrown around of something in the order of 200 billion rand that might be required in addition to the existing health budget, right? That is a lot of money, which would need to be raised somehow. Will it be raised by raising taxes? We don't know. Will there be other mechanisms that are put in place to raise this? We don't know. But whatever they are, it's going to be very costly. And so not actually leveling up with South Africans to say, this is what the policy that we're putting out will cost. Are you prepared to bear that cost? We think that that's not the right thing to do. And thirdly, you know that as business, we are in partnership with government because we really believe in this country. We want to be a force for good and make sure we contribute. So we've been working with government on energy, bringing resources and human resources and so on. We've been working on transport and logistics. So there is increasingly recognition that we achieve more when we work together than when we go it alone.
Now, what do you then say? What do you then say about this position, right? Which is that the National Health Insurance Bill, or now would be law by tomorrow, has been set up primarily because the current private healthcare is unaffordable on the one hand, and public healthcare, as we know it, is just unaffordable and unacceptable, and this is going to fall smack bang in between. So, isn't that a good thing?
So, two things that I need to clarify. The first one is that we support the goal of universal health access. In other words, that everybody should have access to good quality health care. That goal we support, right? The only thing we are raising is that the bill in its current form actually undermines the attainment of that goal. So yes, we support the reforms of the health system. We think both parts of the health system, the private and the public, are really crying out for reforms, but those reforms need to be implemented properly and carefully, And what we have on the table, we think is not implementing reforms in a way that is responsible. So, for instance, the long-term sustainability of the reforms that are in the in the NHI, we think that that's not been taken into account. So we can't, for short-term gains, whatever those short-term gains are, put a health system of the entire population into jeopardy in the long run. And so we say, let's not rush. Let's really work together. We have made proposals of the private sector of areas where we can begin to implement and introduce elements of the NHI or elements of universal health coverage that are not going to break the system while we attend to the other aspects.
I see Cascovadia, the CEO of BUSA, has said that, and I'm quoting him from your statement, we fully support the objective of universal health coverage, which is what you've said. However, the NHI bill in its current form is unworkable, unaffordable, and not in line with the Constitution. Now, those are strong words, right? Unaffordable, unworkable, unaffordable, and not in line with the Constitution. So therefore, what then is your suggestion? You said you've already put through some proposals going forward. What are they that will be the alternative to this?
So firstly, just to say that what we had really pleaded with the President to do was to send the bill back to Parliament so that the different concerns that were raised can be attended to without the rush, right? And let me jump in to raise a different issue which begins to show that actually from as way back as 2015, there were proposals of introducing what is referred to as low-cost benefit options to medical schemes. In other words, it's the version of a medical scheme that is low cost. That would begin to give access to private health care, at least primary health care, to as many as 5 to 10 million people who are currently not covered. That in itself would reduce the burden on the public health system. But those proposals haven't been attended to. I mean, they were submitted to the Council for Medical Schemes. Why in almost 10 years these decisions haven't been made to allow medical schemes to do this? So it's one thing to complain that the health is unaffordable and all of that stuff, but we have made proposals that begin to say, actually, we can improve the system, we can reduce the burden of the public health system so that, the resources go further. These are all of the things that make us wonder, why is it that all of these really well-meaning proposals are disregarded?
Okay, you said, your suggestion would be to refer the President to refer it back to Parliament for further discussion. Clearly, he's not done that, right?
Yes.
There's also been the counter-argument that the broad-based principle of NHI is solid, but in its current implementation with its current leadership, that's where there's a level of distrust in the country. What do you then take of the bill being rushed into law now, 15 days before election?
So I'll give you an example, Stephen, Ashraf. So the bill creates what will be called the NHI fund. Just to draw some parallels, so it would be an equivalent of another road accident fund or unemployment insurance funds, big funds that are managed on behalf of South Africans by a single entity. And you know how much difficulties these two funds I'm referencing have had. Do you really want to take all of that into to the healthcare sector as well? These are some of the concerns that have been raised to say, actually, these are worries that people have about the governance issues, et cetera, et cetera. So now, this is not to suggest that these things will indeed happen. What we are saying is that we shouldn't rush things because the damage that would be done should anything go wrong is just so monumental.
Okay, right. What more would you now do in terms of further consultation with the President? Just a last thought.
So, well, look, we don't want to sort of second guess the President. I mean, he's decided to not just put pen to paper, but to actually call a media event and do it publicly. We expect that he will also make announcements about when different sections of the bill or act come into effect, which might then provide the space for refining some of the issues that we're unhappy with. it would have been better not to go down this route because you need to get the foundation right before you start.
All right, let's see how that plays out. Some said, in fact, don't be too critical. This thing will be rolled out in installments. So let's see what finally happens. Much appreciate your time, Kulikani Mate, CEO designate of Business Unity South African. Best wishes with your Manchester United team as well. Thank you for your time. Let's talk about support for the ANC coming from abroad right after this.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation.
Attorney Yunus Mohammed was detained and held in solitary confinement, but it didn't stop him fighting apartheid. In the mid-1980s, he was a founder of the United Democratic Front and helped to defend the 22 activists charged in the Delmas treason trial. On May the 29th, the Kagiso Trust's Remember Me initiative encourages South Africans to honour Mohammed's memory by exercising the right he fought so hard for, the right to vote. Hashtag Remember Me.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Right, this is something that should really get you to consider in one way or the other. The International Union of Muslim Scholars has called on all Muslims in South Africa to vote for the ANC in the upcoming national and provincial elections. Now, this grouping of international scholars are not South African-based, I understand. They're based in Europe. My guest is Ibrahim El-Zayat, who's an executive member of the International Union of Muslim Scholars and a member of the Council of European Muslims. Ibrahim, appreciate your time. You're live on the National Pulse.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Explain your position, if I've quoted you correctly, that your organization is called on all Muslims in South Africa to vote for the ANC in the upcoming election.
Well, to be more precise, I have led a delegation of different Islamic organizations who came to thank South Africa on a Thanksgiving mission for their outstanding support to the Palestinian cause. There is no doubt that not only Muslims, but everybody who stands for justice and for peace has to have a very clear stance on this genocide that is happening even while we are speaking here now together on radio. This has brought us to the conviction that we have to come and support the South African government for this position and this pivotal action that they have taken with the International Court of Justice and the ongoing support that they are giving to the Palestinian people, especially in Gaza. In addition to that, we wanted to make sure that the upcoming elections are not only elections with a reference to South Africa, but as 64 elections that are going to take place this year in various places in the world, these are elections that have a global dimension, and the support to the Palestinian people is deeply connected to the continuation of the current ruling party in power, because it is not clear what will be in future, and the fate of the Palestinian people are deeply connected to the continuation of support.
So let's get at your last point. I mean, and you're quite right. Who knows who's going to win the election? Who knows what the policy of that new government will be? Whether it's an opposition government or a government of unity in terms of coalition, we just don't know that, right? But it does, and I understand the thank you part, but it does seem surprising that you call out the support for the ANC only, considering there could be many other parties who also are supportive of the Palestinian cause.
I think we have been clear in saying that the global dimension of these elections should be taken into consideration. And there is no doubt that the ruling party has clearly shown by the leadership of Mr. Ramaphosa and especially Minister Naledi Pandor a very, very clear stance on this. And so this is also highlighting that in that case, we know what these leaders are standing for. And so the support to them should be a responsibility to the Muslims and to others.
Okay, I hear that. My point again is, why not make the call for Muslims to support all parties in South Africa that supports the Palestinian cause? Why single on the ANC only?
No, I think what we said is to take this global dimension into consideration. And if you want to make sure that this is done, then you need to make sure that you take those into account who already have proven their position.
All right, a fair point, and I think many people are completely on side with South Africa's global position regarding the Palestinians. Having said that, domestically, it's no secret that the ruling party has been around for 30 years. There are some serious service delivery issues, fundamental service delivery issues that the same party has fallen short on, and therefore there's a high degree of disenchantment amongst people in South Africa towards the ruling party, including members of the ruling party themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, your thoughts on that?
I think no doubt that any party which rules for 30 years will have tremendous challenges, and there definitely are issues of corruption and misrepresentation and poor delivery. I think nobody will question that. Whoever stays that long in power will have these issues. But what we are looking at is that the global dimension of these elections are quite relevant. And so this is we try to put forward a specific visit.
All right. Now, again, some may say that then represents a very narrow position that you've taken that will suit your agenda. Wouldn't the more global position be to say, whoever comes into power, we support people with the vision of a democracy, a thriving democracy, and a just Palestine?
But this is exactly what we are saying. It is not that we are. What we are saying is to take this global dimension into account. And if you have somebody who has proven his position, this is what we are referring to. But it is not that we are interfering into the elections, but we are trying to highlight the dimension, the international dimension of this elections that are going to take place on the 20th of May.
Lastly, in 30 seconds, why was the call made to Muslims only? It could have been made to all South Africans.
No, but it's not made only to Muslims. It is, in the end, the was.
Yeah, I think we've just lost him on a particularly bad line. I think let's leave it at Ibrahim Al-Zayat. He was on the way to the airport, by the way, so pity we didn't get that last, but maybe we'll get a voice note for him to just play out that last. I think it's an important answer to that question. Why not a call to all South Africans as opposed to Muslims? But first things first, let's get the news now. It's 4 o'clock with Madupi.
Very much, Mr. Garda. The top stories this hour: 2 bodies found in a Pretoria lift shaft, and SALGA representatives at the George disaster site. A very good afternoon. Emergency services in Tshwane have discovered 2 bodies floating in water in a lift shaft while assisting a man who fell to the basement of the building in the Pretoria CBD. Firefighters responded to a call in the early hours of this morning that a building was on fire. They, however, found that the building was not on fire, but that a man had fallen to the basement through a lift shaft. 2 bodies were found upon further inspection. The injured man was taken to hospital and remains in a stable condition. The cause of death of the other 2 victims is being investigated. Tshwane Emergency Services spokesperson Charles Mabaso.
The police found on the scene requested emergency services personnel to assist with lights and provide access to the victim. The scene was immediately declared a crime scene by the South African Police Services. Emergency services, however, remained on the scene to assist with the recovery of the 2 bodies under the command of the South African Police Services.
Representatives of the local government association SALGA have arrived in George to provide support to the local municipality following the collapsed building disaster. The death toll currently stands at 32, with 61 people rescued. 20 people are unaccounted for, while 12 are being treated in hospital. Salga's Mluleki Nkosi says it is a challenge to determine the exact number of people who worked on the site.
The people that were here, a majority of them were foreign nationals. So the families are afraid to give identification because some are illegal, as we understand. So I think that is what is making the numbers to fluctuate. The mayor was explaining to me, and we watched even on CCTV camera, that when the building collapsed, some of them ran away from the scene immediately and never came back.
In election news, the ANC's second deputy SG, Maropene Ramokgopa, says they are confident of a 90% victory in Mpumalanga in the upcoming elections. She is leading the party's campaign trail in KwaZamokuhle in Hendrina. The community is faced with various service delivery issues, including unemployment. Ramokgopa says they have received support from the residents.
From all the houses that we went to, you can hear that people are very positive about their own organization. As we are passing the street, it's people who are saying Viva ANC, and we respond to them. We don't start it, we respond to them. So the campaign is going very well. It's actually much more stronger than we expected. I know that you probably have seen that almost all ANC members came out in former leaders. They were here even. So everyone is going all out to make sure that the ANC win, and the response we are getting is telling us that we are definitely going to win with a majority as the ANC nationally.
Some of the residents in KwaZamokuhle say that ANC leaders campaigning in the area should assist in addressing unemployment.
Some of us have studied something that is not relevant to this site. We've got a lot of mines and power stations, so we need ANC to help us to maybe start new careers, because as we are getting old, some of the things we've done are not relevant.
And the Prime Minister of Qatar, which has mediated between Hamas and Israel, says negotiations for a ceasefire in Gaza have stalled. Since assuming the critical mediation role, Qatar has faced criticism from Israeli officials and some American diplomats over its efforts. The criticism came despite Qatar's ability to reach a deal last year that saw the release of 109 captives from Hamas. Sheikh Mohammed Al Thani pledged that Qatar will continue to seek a solution.
In the past few weeks, we have seen some momentum building, but unfortunately, things didn't move in the right direction. And right now, we are in a status of almost a stalemate. Of course, what happened with Rafah has set us backward a little bit.
The top story this hour, emergency services in Tshwane have discovered 2 bodies floating in water in a lift shaft while assisting a man who fell to the basement of the building in the Pretoria CBD. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemele.
Coming up in your sports this hour, Mamelodi Sundowns aiming for invisible status, and Shakib named in Bangladesh T20 World Cup squad. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
There's a bit of rain across the part of Joburg, which I think surprised a lot of motorists. It's been pretty heavy down the N3 corridor, so from Buccleuch down through to Germiston. Just wet weather conditions and wet and slippery N3. It is pretty slow going, particularly Marlborough Drive through the Buccleuch interchange, both directions through there. Traffic being held up. Durban, terrific amount of truck congestion all day today around Umbilo and Rossborough. If you're not driving in towards the harbour area, like you're not driving a truck that way, just driving a car, you might want to avoid routes like South Coast Road from Clarewood through the Bayhead Road, absolutely jam-packed. Also the M7 towards the Bluff, queuing down towards the South Coast Road junction as well. Durban's N2 from Inanda Road down through towards Spaghetti Junction, looking quite heavy. And this could be the big story today. If you're driving out of Cape Town, if you need flight connections, you need to come with a proper plan today. Truck has lost its load of what appears to be sort of building rubble type of stuff all over the N2. All lanes are blocked at Robert Sobukwe. That's the exit just before you get to the airport. So all lanes blocked. Traffic is parked back through Hospital Bend and halfway down Nelson Mandela Boulevard, leaving the city centre. Big delays towards the airport. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Stay safe on the roads. SAFM is with you.
Location, London. Unit, the London Serious Crime Unit. The Steering, Luther, a dedicated policeman, an inspired maker of connections, and a whirlwind genius. Dazzling, obsessive, and sometimes dangerous in the violence of his fixations. The challenge. Every episode will see Luther facing a succession of psychological duels between a hunter and the hunted, a predator and the prey. Tune in to Luther, Monday to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 1st of May. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime only on S3. Open up.
The Democratic Alliance is on a mission to rescue South Africa. Together with the Multi-Party Charter for South Africa, we have a real chance to bring in a new government that works. We can turn things around, but we cannot do it without you. In this election, the stakes are simply too high. Every single vote is going to count. A strong DA can rescue South Africa. Join the rescue mission on the 29th of May. Vote DA.
This political party advertisement was paid for by the political party concerned. The views expressed in this advertisement are those of the political party and not those of the SABC.
Stellies gets it that they can never catch Masandawana, but they want to secure the second position. Meanwhile, Kabuyelo loves it on the summit and want to grab 3 points to extend their lead. This is the DSTV Premiership. Witness the unmatched passion of Mzansi's beautiful game. Stellenbosch FC versus Mamelodi Sundowns FC on Saturday, 18 May at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
If you heard me early on, I asked a question about, what are the maybe 5 key factors that make up what I'd call the mood of the nation and therefore the national pulse. So as a way of measuring it, and I'm basically asking you to work with me on this one. Can we put out 5 things, right? And then we measure that every day or every week and say if it's going up, it's going down. That reflects what we call the national pulse. And it could be, issues of unemployment. It could be the crime rate. It could be, safety and security. It could be leadership. It could be healthcare, whatever. You give me your thoughts. Which 5 issues needs to be measured once a week, no matter what, that we can then say, that's the national pulse. We now know. We give it back to you. So you can WhatsApp us with text. You can also tweet it out on the X platform as well as post it on the SFM radio platform on Facebook. All those options are available to you. Comments, we've had lots of people who want to talk, understandably. And as always, we try our best as a team to manage it all. So we'll take your calls as soon as we can. But also even your WhatsApp voice notes as well as text messages, right? Okay, let's get to the issue of the NHI bill. So we've had one take on it earlier on by getting the thoughts of Business Unity South Africa. They are in opposition at this point in time of the bill. They find that in principle it's fine, but in its current form it's unworkable. In fact, they even say it's unconstitutional. Let's get another take on that with December Mavuso, who's the Deputy General Secretary of NEHAWU, the National Education, Health and Allied Workers Union. December, you're live on the National Pulse. Hi.
Yeah, good afternoon, Ashraf, and to the listeners.
Much appreciate you giving off your time. Right. Now, we chatted earlier on to Kolekane Mate, the CEO designate of Business Unity South Africa, and he responded to my thoughts around it being the current situation of public health care being, just not practical in terms of it's something people try and get away from, but medical or private healthcare being unaffordable. And where does he fit on that?
So 2 things I need to clarify. The first one is that we support the goal of universal health access. In other words, that everybody should have access to good quality health care. That goal we support, right? The only thing we are raising is that the bill in its current form actually undermines the attainment of that goal. So yes, we support the reforms of the health system. We think both parts of the health system, the private and the public, are really crying out for reforms, but those reforms need to be implemented properly and carefully. And what we have on the table, we think is not implementing reforms in a way that is responsible. So, for instance, the long-term sustainability of the reforms that are in the in the NHI, we think that that's not been taken into account. So we can't, for short-term gains, whatever those short-term gains are, put a health system of the entire population into jeopardy in the long run. And so we say, let's not rush. Let's really work together. We have made proposals of the private sector of areas where we can begin to implement and introduce elements of the NHI or elements of universal health coverage that are not going to break the system while we attend to the other aspects.
Okay, so that's one view. Let's get then the view from the official Nehawu position in this matter. What do you make? Firstly, with the response from Busa, December.
Well, I did not listen to the interview, but let me say this, Ashraf, that for us this is really a monumental moment for society. It's the biggest transformation measure since 1994, where resources will be redistributed to the majority of the population. Now, what Busa is raising is almost suggesting that NHI will be implemented at once. Mm-hmm. It's not possible. NHI will be implemented in phases over decades. Even the countries that have a similar health system, they did not build that system in one day. It took decades to build. You look at Canada and many more countries. So it takes time. Even the current private healthcare system in our country, it was not built in one day. Although it has its own problems, despite the fact that it is highly subsidized, serving a tiny portion of the population who receive a majority of share in the budget allocated by National Treasury. So NHI is going to change that. And that's why, for us, it's a step in the right direction. It's a big moment for society. Since 1994, it's such a transformation measure where majority gets to benefit has never happened.
Now, from the Busa point of view, and it's not just between Busa and Nehawu, but their point is that in broad principles, they're absolutely fine with NHI. What they're concerned about is its current state as it stands, that it's not workable and unconstitutional as well. Do you feel, you made the point that it'll be incrementally phased in. I hear that. It could take quite a while. The broader issue of that public healthcare in its current form being impractical, and it really lets too many people down, but the private healthcare being unaffordable. You do agree with that, right?
Private health is unaffordable. We agree. We agree that there are challenges in the public health system, but you will not build the public health system as long as private health sector is dependent on the public service. It is highly subsidized by the public service, yet you saying, no, build the public health system first. But the bulk of the money go to private health sector. In many ways, private health is eating from the public health budget. So the argument is almost saying, no, we agree with you, but retain the status quo. We don't think that. But in terms of the constitutionality, let's say this. This is almost the rule of law. It's in the Constitution. Government is obliged by law, by the Constitution, to make sure that there's universal access for all. So when he says unconstitutionally, I'm not sure what they're referring to, but to us, this is the rule of law. Government is obliged to ensure that there's access for everyone and for quality, not just access, quality health care.
When you say, there, and this is really the nub of the story, when you say there are challenges in public health care, then I'm going to say, that's a very, very soft word to use. There are hundreds of examples of people who go for private health care, not because they can afford it, they can't afford it, but they are dead scared of going into public health care because of the experiences they've seen over and over and over again. That's been the argument that, in fact, nothing wrong with the basic system of NHI, but in its current implementation, based upon the record of what we have at public health care right now, how do we trust that process?
Look, during COVID, I'm sure we have all seen that a society can't rely on a private healthcare. It is the public healthcare with all these challenges that carried us during COVID, especially because the resources were directed there. There's issues of infrastructure, yes. There's issues of high vacancy rates, whether the shortages in terms of nurses, doctors, and so on. But it is all because the money that goes to the private sector, but also because of government policy choices of implementing austerity. In other words, austerity means only one thing: stop the government spending on infrastructure and all of those things. That's all austerity represents.
But you see, that's why this issue. You made the point about nurses. Many nurses can't get jobs. Many nurses taking jobs over in other countries, like in the Middle East. And then we know we've had experiences of doctors. I think 500 doctors unemployed in KZN last month. They picketed to try and get jobs. This is the point. If they're not going to give them jobs, how are we going to change that? So yourself being supportive of it, then what would you then ask of the government to fix? In terms of the Department of Health, to fix things immediately that would get your support?
Look, we will not fix everything immediately, but the pooling of the resources into one pot in terms of the NHI fund would allow you to start fixing things, whether issues of infrastructure, whether it's increasing the number of headcounts in terms of nurse-patient ratio, doctor-patient ratio. As long as those resources are lying everywhere, including money that goes to COIDA, certain money that goes to RAF, and always part of that money is going to come to one pot now, and that will enable us to be able to fix certain things. The other thing is that with NHI, workers will not be paid differently, both in the private and public sector. There will no need for competition, that a nurse in the private health is paid slightly different from a nurse in the public health sector, and so on. So you'll be able to manage the resources. You'll be able to distribute the resources, including the personnel itself, in the entire health system.
Let me leave you with this, because we've got 30 seconds to go. What do you feel about the medical aid companies, and there are many of them with huge revenues, who maybe feel most threatened, but others may say skeptically, we could actually destroy them and therefore lose out both ways? You got about 30 seconds to answer
that. Well, at the expense of the majority, 16%, which has declined actually to 14.9% now. So the issue of the medical aid is about profiteering in our view. And if you read the Health Market Inquiry report, it tells you that actually the members of the medical aid scheme have not been receiving value for money. As things stands now, the savings of people who are on medical aid, it gets depleted even in the middle of the year and so on.
But will both be destroyed? Something to consider. Thank you for your time. We're going to leave it at that. December Mavuso, who's the Deputy General Secretary of NEHAWU. So we have the NHI, we have big implementation as law tomorrow. We then have the existing issues of big problems within public healthcare as it stands. And then we have the medical aid companies. And then we have you at the center of all of that. What does that do for your pulse? You're on the National Pulse.
Which is the best way to reach success? Is it best to go alone so you can go fast? Or for many to go together so they can go far? What if you need to go fast and far? At RMB, we believe the best way to success doesn't make you choose when both are possible. possible. When you need a thoughtful solution for financial complexity, there are only 3 letters you need to know. RMB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
TV licenses have developed a new GIS-linked national address database to ensure that we can communicate with all our valued license holders. We now have a visual of all licensed and unlicensed households nationwide in order to effectively communicate with you. We remind you to take note of our payment reminders and avoid paying penalties due to non-compliance or choosing to ignore your legal obligation to pay your license fees. We can communicate with all our license holders through cost-effective electronic methods, enabling us to collect license fees and continue to support the national broadcaster, the SABC, in accordance with Section 27 of the Broadcasting Act No. 4 of 1999 as amended. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
The SABC Fortune Combo radio stations, which includes SAFM, Lotus FM, and Radio 2000, seek the services of a freelance graphic designer who will collaborate with cross-functional teams to create visually compelling assets that align with our receptive brand identities and resonate with our target audiences. The minimum requirements for the position are a bachelor's degree or diploma in graphic design, visual arts, or related field, 2 to 4 years proven experience as a graphic designer with a strong portfolio showcasing a range of design projects. All interested candidates should submit their CVs and portfolio of evidence to vacancy@safm.co.za. Application closed on the 26th of May 2024. For more detailed info, visit www.safm.co.za or follow us on our social media pages at SAFM Radio. SAFM, leading the conversation. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
So here's something significant, because often we talk about the NPA and lack of investigation into huge issues, where we understand now that the NPA has made recommendations to reopen inquests into the deaths of significant names or leaders in our country. And therefore the Minister of Justice, Ronald Ramola, has accepted that. Let's find out more about it with Crispin Piri, who is the spokesperson for the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services. Crispin, you're live on the National Pulse. Hi.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon, SAFM listeners. Welcome back, Ashraf.
Much appreciated, but I've been watching you from a distance, so much appreciated. Thank you so much. Crispin, so I mentioned significant names. Who are these names and why the reopening of inquest?
So we're speaking about the Nobel Peace Prize laureate, our first Nobel Peace Prize laureate, Chief Albert Luthuli. We're speaking about Mlungisi Griffiths Mxenge and Boy Manji in Northern Cape. And all of these individuals have one thing in common, is that their deaths were under various mysterious circumstances. And even though we somehow know how they passed on, at least in the case of Mlungisi Griffiths Mxenge, what we're finding there is that those who had confessed to their crimes at the TRC Commission, at the time when the inquest was put forward during the apartheid days, certain information was not brought forward to the state at the time. And so we need to close that loop. With regards to Chief Albert Luthuli, we also know there that he passed on under mysterious circumstances, allegedly being hit by a train. But there's also now new information that mathematical and scientific information was not brought to the attention of the inquest nor the TRC Commission. And this information is still available and may give us some signs and closure around how he passed on truly. The notion that he passed on seriously by a train crash is seriously disputed. With Mr. Boy Manji, the allegation was that he had an altercation with a police officer at some point, and then that led to his, but there also no one was held accountable. There's also new information that there's now an eyewitness who actually witnessed what had actually happened there, and that eyewitness is willing testify so that at least we have closure in these cases.
I mean, it's interesting. I'm not an investigative officer, but it's interesting that you get new information, like sometimes, months or years or decades after a person passes on. I mean, does that surprise you?
Yes, I mean, it's quite surprising, but it's also encouraging to show that indeed the truth always comes out. And it also shows that, look, we have the capacity to investigate crimes to the fullest. No such thing really, I guess, as a cold case. And it's paying off. We did eventually decide in this administration to ensure that we have a dedicated unit that deals with TRC crimes. And we are seeing the dividends of that now. Specialized team investigating this. Of course, it does come at an opportunity cost, Ashraf. You would want to have all of your prosecutors dealing with everyday crimes as much as possible, in which we do. But there's also this important work that has to be done by law enforcement agencies to ensure that those who never confess for their apartheid crimes, even though we had the opportunity to give them, even though they had the opportunity to confess at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, they are ultimately held accountable. So we are seeing the Craddock 4 inquest also in the pipeline. It's actually in the Eastern Cape jurisdiction as we speak. We are seeing Kefas Nyoka. His case is currently also at the Magistrates Court in Benoni. We are seeing the Costas 4. And in fact, we have a conviction matter at Ashraf in KZN. One of the apartheid Askaris was also brought to book and ultimately sentenced.
Well, I mean, I'm delighted that there's some serious headway being made here, right? There has been, is it any coincidence in terms of this coming on the back of huge criticism recently of the NPA about the long delays they've taken to look into these cases? And I mean, Shamil Abatorius himself has admitted that. And the second point, this now coming imminently before the election.
Well, let's start there. The issue of this coming for election, I think this notion that government will stop working because there's an election is something we must just confront head on. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, whether there's an election or not, and it must be done. And I think we mustn't attach too much prominence to the fact that this is being done because there are polls. If we look at the systems that have been put in place to make these things an eventuality, I think that's what we must appreciate more than the actual timing of when these things come to fruition. To some extent, yes, it's good fortune that some of these things come to fruition at such an important time, and I think that's also just a reality of the circumstances that we have. On the other hand, the criticism of the NPA having taken long, we have always said is justified. We wouldn't want to be dealing with these type of cases in the sixth administration of South Africa. I mean, almost say 30 years down the line, some say. But we must remember that, of course, the TRC officially ended in 2003. But nonetheless, we are here now, and we have put in the resources in place to ensure that the work gets done. And I think that's what we should focus our energies on, ensuring that the work is done, the work is being seen to be done, prosecutions are coming to the fore, and let's take that in our stride.
Okay, and some may say nail who needs to be nailed. Crispin Peary, thanks for your time, spokesperson for the Ministry of Justice and Correctional Services, and I assume we'll have lots more chats down the line in the future. Thank you so much for your time. Let's get the news headlines now with Madupi.
Thank you very much, Ashraf, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines, the IEC says it is comfortable with the controls it has put in place with regards to voting abroad. Eskom says if there's any load shedding this winter, it is expected to be at the lower levels, and the International Court of Justice will hold public hearings on Thursday and Friday this week on South Africa's latest request for additional provisional measures against Israel. And those are your headlines. Details with Greg at 5.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
This will take you straight to Cape Town for a major update, or major delay update, if you like. Lost load on the N2 out of town at Robert Sobukwe. That is the exit before you get to the airport. It looks like a load of building rubble. There's bricks and cement and everything. It's a real mess out that way. The highway was closed. Authorities have managed to open just the left lane. So one lane open towards the airport at peak time. On the N2, you can imagine the damage behind this. The N2 backs from halfway out of the city centre on Nelson Mandela Boulevard. Once you pick up the back of that queue, you're not out of it until you get effectively to the airport. Routes like the N7, Jake Skirville coming from Epping through Langa onto that N2 outbound. A heavy, the M5 through Maitland down towards the N2 outbound. Very heavy backlogs as well. It's going to be a tough afternoon for motorists coming out of Cape Town, either wanting flight connections or just wanting to get out of town and beyond the airport towards Khayelitsha and areas that side. So if you need a flight connection, make sure you're possibly considering alternative routes to beat the N2. It's super heavy today. Talking of heaviness, the N3 in Joburg is backed up from Alex all the way up towards crash scene at the Buccleuch interchange. And Durban has been jam-packed today in the Rossborough, Bilo and Bayhead areas, still very much so, with trucks that are parked all over local routes in that area, including blockages on the M7 eastbound towards the Bluff, South Coast Road from the M7, in fact from Clarewood up to Bayhead Road and Bayhead Road Maiden Wharf. A lot of congestion. If you're not going into the harbour area, avoid that part of Durban. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, to me, I'm calling you Minister of Sports second time in a row. It may grow on you. Okay?
You know what? Yeah. Maybe I might just be that Minister of Sports in the future.
Go ahead.
Let's start things off with football. News just coming in. Sekhukhune United have placed head coach Letlonolo Siyema on a special leave with just 2 DStv Premiership matches to go. And this comes as a surprise because he's been in charge of a total of 21 games, winning 8, drawing 9 and losing only 4. And they're 4th on the log. And right now, we're just waiting on the club to give clarity on the reason why the former Lesotho international will not be on the bench for their remaining fixtures against Amazulu as well as Chipa United. Then Mamelodi Sundowns are aiming for an invisible season, but they face a tricky Royal AM side tonight. The Brazilians have won all 6 previous meetings against Twitlil with 17 goals scored. If they avoid defeat tonight, it will be their 50th league matches unbeaten. For Royal AM, Sabelo Sitole and Zuki Lemkize are out on injury, while Sundowns welcome back Ronan Williams from suspension. In rugby, Ruan Pinar has admitted that he has mixed feelings as he prepares for the final game of his career when the Cheetahs host Griquas in an SA Cup clash in Bloemfontein. The veteran player will hang up his boots after the ongoing SA Cup and take up the position as Free State under-21 backline and attack coach. Friday night's derby will be the final game of Binar's 20-year professional career, which started back in 2004 with the Sharks in Durban. Then in cricket, Bangladesh included experienced all-rounder Shakib Al Hassan in their 15-man squad for the T20 World Cup in the West Indies and United States in June. The team will be led by batsman Najmal Hossain Shantu, who was named skipper in all 3 formats of the game this year amid uncertainty over the availability of Shakib, who was dealing with an eye problem. The former captain made his comeback to T20 international cricket after a gap of nearly a year this month in the home series against Zimbabwe, claiming 5 wickets in 2 matches. Bangladesh are in World Cup Group D alongside Sri Lanka, South Africa, the Netherlands and Nepal in that tournament that starts on the 1st of June to the 29th of June. And I'm looking forward to the T20 World Cup. On that note, it's a wrap from my side.
Nice and short. I mean, that's the one thing about... I love Test cricket, just so that you know.
Yeah.
But, okay, maybe 2 confessions. One, I love Test cricket. I'll watch the T20 World Cup and I'll watch one-day international tournaments.
Yeah.
But one-day international, best of 3 series in South Africa, around the world, I'm not interested.
Not at all?
No.
Really?
It's just meaningless to me.
Is it?
Sorry. What do you think?
What they always
so I'm not
say.
talking of tournaments. Like the World Cup, I'll watch.
Okay.
But I'm talking of they play 2 test matches and then they have a 3-match series in India. No.
You know what they always say? If you really want to know who loves cricket ask them if they love Test cricket. If they do, then you know that they really love cricket.
But that means people don't love cricket because the numbers in Test cricket have dwindled. And the reality is T20 cricket with the big numbers of young people is what pays the bills. And it's fascinating. Okay, we'll chat again. Minister of Sports in another hour's time.
I'll have more in the next hour for SAFM Sport.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 104.6 FM in Tshwane.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's, in fact, we're going to take your calls very shortly, and I know that there's been people very reflective of exactly what we say, the National Pulse, having a diverse range of many opinions on many issues. So we'll talk about all of that coming up shortly. But as always, we talk markets now with Makwe Masilela. Hi, Makwe.
Hi, Ashraf, and good afternoon to the listeners.
Good afternoon indeed. Right, what do you got for us today?
You know, we've seen Equities and Dipula, they're both property companies, but Equities, the guys own high-quality logistic properties in SA and UK, and their rental growth in SA was up 6.4%, in UK up 5%, and the portfolio valuation for SA is up 4.2%, whilst that in the UK is up 2.1%, and look into their portfolio vacancy rate is sitting at 0%, and you look into the weighted average lease expiry of almost 12.6 years, so the guys are okay that side. And we know that since COVID-19 days, logistic properties are in demand. Share price up nicely 4%. Dipula, they've got your retail, office, industrial and residential properties, and that's mainly in Gauteng, and their strategy is paying off. That is to own a defensive portfolio which is biased towards convenience, rural and township retail centers, which are in high demand as compared to upmarket shopping malls. Revenue up 9.1%, and their profit as headline earnings per share up a mere 4.2%, but still the share price is up nicely 1.5%.
All right, and then you have an update on local and global markets, right?
Yeah, markets were eyeing inflation, you know, and that is to gauge if it will still be hotter, as we've seen that we've been coming out very hot now lately. And US wholesale prices jumped more than expected in April, and that itself is putting up another potential roadblock to interest rate cuts anytime soon. And tomorrow we're getting the consumer inflation, and we've seen another major Chinese developer defaulting, and that is the latest sign that the debt market crisis facing China property sector is far from being over. And Anglo-American, apparently it will exit their diamond, platinum and coal mining. That's in a massive restructuring, and that is designed to fend off that $43 billion bid from BHP Billiton. And we saw our Q1 unemployment rate jumping to 32.9% from 32.1% in the previous quarter. Markets expected 32.3%, and the main drivers of the increase was more entrance into the labor force, and the knee-jerk reaction was a slight decline when it comes to the rent. And also our March mining production fell by 5.8%, and that is the biggest fall since February 2023, and worse than the expected 3% decline, and that's after increasing by 10.3% in February. And oil gave back some of the previous session gains, and that's in a cautious trade ahead of that US CPI data, while OPEC Plus kept its demand and supply forecast unchanged. Brent crude now is down 0.8% at $82 a barrel, and gold traders are doing the opposite. That is ahead of that key inflation data. We see that yellow metal is up 0.6% at 2,349. Platinum is up 0.9% at 1,018. The DAX is down 0.1%. CAC Foods is flat. The Dow is up 0.1%. S&P is up 0.2%, just like the JSE. With our resources down 0.8%, financials down 0.6%, but our industrials are up 1.5%. The rand just weakened 0.4% against US dollars, now at 18.43, 23.18 to the pound, and 19.93 to the euro.
And that's where we can leave it. Thanks for your time. We will connect tomorrow. Makwe, thank you. Makwe Masilela, Chief Investment Officer, that we talk to just about every day around this time from Makwe Fund Managers. Right. In fact, we'll get to calls, WhatsApps, texts, voice notes, live calls, tweets maybe. All of that in a moment.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
I mentioned at the beginning of the program about the huge concerns about our unemployment rate, and we'll have another take on that issue coming up. We had a chat with the Statistician General, but we'll get another take on that coming up after 5. Listen on for that. But your opinion in terms of how it impacts on the national pulse definitely matters. Lemias Mashila, you first up from Bushbuck Ridge. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good. Good talking to you as always. Thank you. Right, what's your take?
Well, Ashraf, like as one has indicated that we currently a General Secretary of the South African National Civic Organization. We lead in communities. You know, we need really to give our condolences to the families that have lost loved ones at George on the complex that has collapsed. And we really need to appreciate as well, like as I spoke to you the other day, that the Engineering Council and then have actually stepped up to come into the fore to assist in the investigations, and South African Council, you know, project as well, managers have come up. And then we are definitely sure that we have got professionals that will actually investigate, find out, and actually indicate what has happened. And we really want to call upon all other municipalities, you know, to pay serious attention to what is coming out of that collapse, so that they really take serious lessons. Because these things are actually happening under their noses. And we may not be knowing in other municipalities, but we really call upon that, because this issue of losing people, you know, on things that can be avoided.
Okay, yeah.
It should be really taken care of.
Well, absolutely, and it's a crisis every single time. So let's leave it at that. I think this is the point that I made at the outset, to say, you know, to you, as I talk to you right now, what's it like to be unemployed? You know, share that with us. And for those who are employed and running the risk of being unemployed, what advice can you give them? You know, the life of an unemployed person. It is not easy, okay? I asked a question about factors that should go into the national pulse that reflects the mood of a nation. Here's a question, Bonga saying from Soweto. Ashraf, it's the price of bread. Very important. Thank you. Got that. Chapo in Diepkloof, go ahead. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf.
Yeah, good talking to you. Right.
You know, good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon.
Look, this is a very interesting topic, especially when you're discussing with the Statistician General. I listened carefully to him when he was explaining what constitutes unemployed people, discouraged. We even have another category of those that are at all, those that have given up at all, you know, other than those that are discouraged or so. But I was asking myself, because the statistics honestly are too high, you know, that what about contract employees? What about the people that are doing car washes that are so well established? Dry places that are so well established, taverns that have been running for years, tech shops, irrespective that they are run by foreign nationals and so on. There's a human being there that is there for years. Are we counting those people in, or are we the garages, the filling stations that have employed foreigners and are paying them?
So you're saying whether they reflected as employed or unemployed? Is that what you're asking, right?
I want to know if they are calculated in or not.
Okay.
Because you'll understand that the denominator, it's everyone, you know. But in terms of what is on top, you know, who is regarded as employed? Is it only people in the firms like your SABC, established ones? What about people that are working at the garage? Are they counted in?
Okay, got that. Point taken.
And even foreign nationals, are they counted in?
All right.
You know?
Well, you know, okay, got that. I would think if you're a foreign national, you're living in the country, But if you're a foreign national and you're not supposed to be here as an illegally, then you wouldn't be counted anyway, because technically you don't exist in terms of the count. I mean, that's my opinion. But let's get further thoughts. A range of WhatsApp voice notes that's always gets me thinking and should get you thinking too. Here's one.
The call is not only to the Muslim community, it is definitely a call to everybody who stands for peace and justice. And so it is a call to everybody to make sure that this global dimension of the election is not put at second place. But as an international union of Muslim scholars, we definitely address the Muslim community as well.
Okay, that one
Ashraf, life being unemployed, it's the worst feeling ever. Fortunately enough, some of us.
I'm going to go back. Just want to just clarify. So that comment from Ibrahim was Ibrahim Al Zayat, who I had as a guest. My last question to him was, why is the call made to Muslims only to vote for the ANC in terms of their support of Palestine? Then his call got cut off because he's off to the airport, but he sent us that voice note. So that's the one, right? Okay, let's get to the other issue about being unemployed and, the life of an unemployed person.
Ashraf, life being unemployed, it's the worst feeling ever. Fortunately enough, some of us had an opportunity to join the presidential empowerment youth program that only ran for a certain amount of time, like I think it was 7 months. As soon as you receive your last salary, it's like you took two steps forward and you're taking 10 steps backwards. It's just life being unemployed as a youth, being qualified, having multiple degrees, it's the worst feeling ever. Eugene from Newcastle.
With multiple degrees, I heard that. Now, that's for a person who's skilled. Then you get people who are unemployed and they're unskilled. And sure, I mean, really, I think it is incredibly difficult because at the core of all the things we talk about, forget all the fancy things that happens in government and the different political parties, at the very core is a family. A family of a husband and wife typically, and children that relies on them, and they survive because of them, and the choices they make of which schools they go to, which healthcare they do, what boots they get, what type of clothing, depends on whether their parents are unemployed or employed. It is such an important issue. Here's another.
Hey Ashraf, number 5 pulses. I don't know how to call it. My 5 things that I gauge throughout the week. 1, land redistribution. 2, economic transformation. 3, the transformation of the state. 4, the relationship between labor and government. And then number 5, nation building, of which the 5 are the things that the pillars that makes the African National Congress to stay erect. The 5 are the ones that made all liberation movements in Africa to collapse. That is why I vote for the ANC.
Okay, got that. I must say, I mean, the 5 that you gave, thank you for that. Many of them are on a very macro level, and there's nothing wrong with that, because that's why the truth is there can be 50, right? How do we get it down into 5 daily things that we can measure every single day, right? In fact, here's a last one that I just want to play around the new system, right?
Hello, Ashraf. What is going to change in the new system? The same old tired nurses that don't do anything now, are they going to change their attitude and give better service? Thank you.
Do we say all nurses are tired? I mean, that's maybe my point. You could say some of them, not all. All right, let's get into other issues around our daily election watch right after this.
This Election Watch feature is brought to you by Kagiso Trust. Follow the #RememberMe initiative.
Well, you know that, it's been a fascinating collaboration with Kagiso Trust about emphasizing the need to vote and for getting you and I and everybody else to remember me, as in remember those who fought so hard to get us to vote. So with that in mind, I think voter sentiment is particularly important. Now, Brendan de Kock is a director of storytelling at Y5. Brendan, good chatting to you. Hello.
Hey, Ashraf, how are you doing?
I'm very good indeed. Right, I understand that you have a report or a voter sentiment survey that I should be very interested in. So go ahead and tell us about it.
Well, Ashraf, what we did was, there's a lot of people who are obviously going to be tracking polling and, who people are going to vote for. That's a science all unto itself. I think that people like the Social Research Foundation and co are really good at it. We're actually in the business. Every year we publish a report called Brand Map, which is about the taxpayers of South Africa, and we're actually sort of consumer insight specialists. And we were sitting one day, sort of towards the end of last year, thinking, when it comes to elections, we are actually just all consumers. The difference is what we're looking to buy as a kind of better future for ourselves and for the country. So, maybe we can apply some of our thinking around consumer sentiment to the idea of voting and what drives voting. And that's all we set out to do. So we teamed up with I don't know, do you know the guys from Moya app? Have you heard of Moya, the Moya app?
Tell me more, yeah?
Yeah, it's a data service provider for kind of low-end consumers, so people who can't really afford data. And what they allowed us to do, they have a massive reach. I mean, they've got 6-7 million people on the platform. So they allowed us to actually do research way down into kind of rural areas. 25% of our respondents were from rural areas. And then we used our own databases. We have another partner called Silverstone who have massive sort of databases and access to consumer. And we landed up with this huge sample of 12,500 people, which is absolutely enormous sample. And we asked them just about voting. What are the things they care about? What do they think about nationalization of the mines? What are the things that are going to change the way or the place where they put their cross in the box for 2 weeks' time?
So what's come through?
Quite a lot of things came through. We were, just to catch up on the conversation you've just been having, unemployment's really interesting because if you ask the average sort of tax-paying consumer what the things are that keep them awake at night, they always come up with crime and corruption and government incompetence and those kind of things. When you apply that same thinking to politics, it's amazing how unemployment suddenly just rises to the top. So how mad is it in a country with a crime problem? And normally a lot of crime will be an issue that's on the top of almost everyone's heads. We live in a country where 75% of people said that crime is an important issue and 85% of people said unemployment. So it's kind of ubiquitous. Yeah, it's one of those sort of crazy indictments on we have a strange we live in a strange country. Ours is an unusual country with unique challenges. So when you see something like that, when unemployment is more of a worry than crime, you've got to know that something's going on.
Mm-hmm. How much did you speak about voting? Okay, carry on. Sorry, you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the other thing that's crazy. Have you been? Sorry, I didn't catch the earlier part of the show, but were you talking a little bit about the youth vote and sort of what young people care about?
Not today, but I mean we've done it on every other day, but not today. But go ahead and tell us. Yes, very important.
Yeah, so I think it's a little bit of damn the horses bolted moment in my mind. We already know what's happened with the youth vote, right? So half of the youth are going to pitch up, if that. The simple statistic is that if you look at registered voters over the age of 40, something like 90% of people who can vote over the age of 40 are registered to vote, whereas the under 40 cohort is just less than 50%. So we have this. So one of the things we measured was like, why on earth did we not activate the youth again this year? And the overwhelming answer, they just don't think that their vote will make any difference. How crazy is that? How mad is it that we've managed to convince the youth of South Africa, in the one country in the world where there are enough young people to swing a vote, we've actually managed to convince them that their vote doesn't make a difference. And I think that kind of apathy, it sort of underpins a lot of what's going to happen on the 28th. So,
but it does say that any political party that even now pays a little bit more attention, even with 2 weeks to go, to the youth, may be able to convince a sizable amount of people to go their way.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. I mean, they could, we still have more, the irony is we have more youthful voters or a higher percentage than ever before who've bothered to register. So yes, they can be swayed. And the beautiful thing is they self-confess they know very little about politics. They're voting with their hearts. That's why a lot of the populist messages do work with the youth. Ideas like communism and nationalization and these things, young people will say, well, I don't know anything about politics, but that sounds like a good idea, So yes, I think there's a lot of opportunity to start giving the right or healthy educational messages to young voters in the next 2 weeks. And all voters,
Yeah, of course. What else do the youth say about South Africa? I know you made the initial point about unemployment and crime. I would take it that would be a general issue, but youth specifically?
So I think the main thing about youth is that they're just disenfranchised, Ashraf. That's the somehow. It's 30 years since our first election. It's a long time ago, and I think that imagine that you were 10 years old, 10 years after apartheid came to an end. You're now well into your second election cycle, and all you've watched is what we've had to watch as a political system. You've grown up in something that it's very, very hard to be proud of or to have any belief in. And that's what's happened to the youth, whether they're going to vote or not, or irrespective of anything. I think they've lost faith in politics as a means to an end. It's almost like they feel like I think there's a sense of hopelessness, which is probably the worst.
But this
thing
comes
that
at a time when there is But this comes at the same time when there's a rising civil activism. Mainly amongst young people around the world, in fact, whether they're working outside of parliaments, they're on university campuses, they're on the streets of capitals of the world, they certainly are. It does tell me that maybe, besides, youth being disillusioned, for example, right, that maybe, and this has come through in your survey, maybe there's a way of connecting with the youth that the political parties are not doing. So is there an insight that you can share about that? I would like to think campaign managers should be listening.
Yeah, I think the obvious thing to do is, they can't do it this election, unfortunately. The thing to do to get young people are generally quite intelligent. The people of South Africa, it's a bit of a misnomer to think that we're just a bunch of idiots. The consumer, the average South African, 63 million people, 43 million adults. We're not a bunch of idiots, and we do understand words and action. So we do see the ruling party definitely benefits from a legacy of habit, right? We people will vote for them because it's what I've always done. Young people haven't had that habit created yet. And the reason why the ones that we measure who say, I'm not going to vote for who I voted last time, overwhelmingly say it's just because they failed to deliver what they said they would.
Okay, which is an important point.
It's simple, right? It's like, say something and then do it.
Brendan,
and I think that in the old days...
Yeah, Brendan, let's leave it at that, Brendan. I'm going to leave it at that. Feel free to, by the way, tweet some of the insights that you can get. I'll post it on Facebook as well as on our X or Twitter platform. Just tag SAFM Radio. Much appreciated. Brendan de Kock, the Y5's Director of Storytelling.
This Election Watch feature was brought to you by Kagiso Trust. Follow the hashtag #RememberMe initiative. On May 29, go vote to make your voice heard. Hashtag #RememberMe.
Right now, first things first, it's the news at 5 and Greg Host is in the hot seat.
Thank you and good afternoon to you, Ashraf. In this news update, IEC clarifies voting abroad and ICJ to hear SA's latest Gaza application. Good day to you. We begin with election news. The IEC says it's comfortable with the controls it's put in place with regards to voting abroad. This weekend, more than 76,000 voters living outside the country are expected to cast their votes for the 2024 elections. Chief Electoral Officer Simon Mabolo.
All such special votes are first placed in an unmarked envelope, which is then inserted into a second envelope marked with a voting station, voters' particulars, for verification on the list of approved special votes. The envelope is then placed into a secure ballot box and then transported into the country. All special votes that were cast outside of the Republic must reach the head office of the Electoral Commission by 9 p.m. on the date of the election.
Meanwhile, Mamabolo has also encouraged political parties and independent candidates to appoint party agents should they wish to observe the voting process. Eskom spokesperson Daphne Mokoena says if there's any load shedding this winter, it's expected to be at lower levels. She says this assessment is based on the maintenance they've done over the past few months and the improved energy availability factor. She says the improved situation has nothing to do with the elections.
We are seeing that when we're returning these units, they are performing reliably. So hence, we talk about a very low breakdown rate. However, as we approach winter, because during our winter status of the system, we did mention that we were expecting that our best case scenario, our unplanned or breakdowns will be at 14,000. But we are actually performing at about 5,000 less or 4,400 megawatts less than what we anticipated our best case scenario would be.
The City of Tshwane's emergency services has discovered 2 bodies floating in water in a lift shaft while assisting a man who fell into the basement of the building in the Pretoria city centre. Firefighters responded to a call that the building was on fire. However, they then found the building was not on fire, but that a man had fallen into the basement through a lift shaft. 2 bodies were then found upon further investigation. The cause of death of the 2 victims is under police investigation. Emergency Services spokesperson Charles Mabaso.
The police found on the scene requested emergency services personnel to assist with lights and provide access to the victim. The scene was immediately declared a crime scene by the South African Police Services. Emergency services, however, remained on the scene to assist with the recovery of the 2 bodies under the command of the South African Police Services.
The National Police Commissioner, Fanny Masemola, says more policing resources and personnel have been deployed to Soshanguve north of Pretoria to address the high levels of criminality in that area. Masemola, together with the police minister, visited the boy's family. A 5-year-old boy was shot and killed when criminals hijacked his father as he arrived home in Soshanguve.
The progress of the team on a weekly basis, we will be evaluating the progress of the team and we will adjust where it is necessary.
The International Court of Justice will hold public hearings on Thursday and Friday this week on South Africa's latest request for additional provisional measures against Israel. South Africa filed an urgent request with the court last week. It's for the indication of additional provisional measures and the modification of measures previously prescribed by the World Court on Israel in relation to its conduct in Gaza. Showan Bryce Peace reports.
The court's initial ruling in January ordered 6 provisional emergency measures on Israel's conduct in relation to its obligations to the Genocide Convention. The SA presidency on Friday said its latest application followed the escalation of Israel's assault on Rafah, which poses extreme risk to humanitarian supplies, basic services in Gaza, the survival of the medical system, and the very survival of Palestinians as a group. The court already ordered additional provisional measures on Israel in March, including the provision at scale of humanitarian assistance in Gaza. The Rafah border crossing in Gaza's south, a key humanitarian lifeline, has been closed since Israel took control of the border last week.
The top story, the IEC says it's comfortable with the controls it's put in place with regards to voting abroad. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khos.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 104.3 FM in Rustenburg. SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good and bad news around Pretoria. The good news is the crash on the M1 North up at the N4 highway, the M11 split, has just been cleared. The bad news is it's going to take a while for the traffic flow to normalise. There's a very heavy queue that extends right back to Botha Avenue in Centurion. Pretty big traffic on Joburg's N3 North as well, from Edenvale all the way through a crash at the N1 Buccleuch interchange. That right up through Alex and Limborough Park looking very heavy. Also backlogs coming through Midrand today. The N1 from Allendale into Buccleuch is super super slow going. It looks like the delays there extend through Buccleuch down towards Ravonia Road, the Sunny Hill area. Durban, still a lot of truck congestion around Umbilla, Rossborough and Bayhead Road. If you're not going to the harbour area in a truck, just maybe a good idea to avoid. They've got trucks parked on multiple routes out that side, causing delays. And Cape Town, a major backlog alert if you're trying to get out of town towards the airport or just trying to get to the airport using the N2. A truck has lost a load of building rubble all over the highway at Robert Sobukwe. Only one lane open. The queue starts right back in the CBD on Nelson Mandela Boulevard. All the routes that feed in, like Philip Kosana, the M3 from Newlands, Forest Drive, Rappenberg Road out of Pinelands, M5 south from Maitland, N7 from Lunga down through sort of Epping, Lunga area towards the N2. Any of those routes that feed into that significant backlog of the N2 are also backlogging themselves. Make sure you've got plenty of time or considering alternative routes towards the airport. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Stay safe on the roads. SAFM is with you.
My name is Songezo Zibi. I am the leader of Rise Mzansi. In this election, it is clearer than ever that we need new leaders. South Africa suffers from deep inequality, violent crime, and poverty. This is caused by politicians who have run out of ideas. We deserve a South Africa that is safe, prosperous, equal, and united. But only new political leaders can achieve this. And these leaders do not exist in the old parties. At Rise Mzansi, we have the team South Africans would want to see in cabinet. We don't make empty promises. We have a plan to govern better. It is time to vote for new leaders. Vote Rise Mzansi on the 29th of May.
This political election broadcast was brought to you in terms of the CASA regulation governing the election period. The views expressed in this political election broadcast are those of the political party and not of the SABC.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, a few things to just highlight. One, I started the show today by asking you to maybe list 5 things that reflects the national pulse of a nation that we should measure as part of an indice every single day or every single week to say, has that gone down or up? Because those things reflect a mood. They impact the mood, in fact, of a nation. So what do you think would be the 5 things that you would put down? Because I want to get your thoughts on that. And perhaps the best way to do that, besides posting it on social media, is you can just WhatsApp us and text us 0614 104 107. We also spoke to Frank Chikane, and you can get that podcast about the establishment of the anti-apartheid conference for Palestine and his thoughts. And then I thought an interesting one around the issue of this European or global Muslim organizations calling on Muslims in South Africa to vote for the ANC. We have a podcast of that. You can listen to that too. And then the other 2 big issues, NHI, 2 takes on that, and the issue of unemployment. And we talk about unemployment once again. So Duma Khubule is with us. He's an independent economist. Duma, appreciate your time. Hi.
Thanks, Ashraf. How are you?
I'm very good indeed. Well, maybe yes, but maybe I should not be so good because, naturally when you hear issues of unemployment rates rising, then one cannot be feeling very good, can I?
Yes, our unemployment crisis is a national disgrace, as I always say. The stats that came out today show that the number of unemployed people during the first quarter of 2024 increased by 419,000 people. There are now 12.1 million unemployed South Africans. The unemployment rate for all South Africans is 41.9%. For African people, it's 46.3%. For youth, it's almost 70%. This is the crisis that we're faced with in a country. We have the highest unemployment rate in the world, and our unemployment rate has increased rapidly over the past 15 years. The question we should be asking is why have we failed so dismally to create jobs for millions of South Africans?
Well, maybe can I ask you to answer that question? Why have we failed so dismally? Can we put a finger to it?
Yes, of course, yeah. So the main reason is that our economy over the past 30 years has not grown fast enough to create jobs for the annual new entrants into the labor force and the people who are previously unemployed. So basically our economy, there's a relationship between GDP growth and employment creation. Our economy grew by 2.4 million jobs. Now, over the past 30 years, there were 8 million people who were working previously, but the labor force increased by 16.7 million people, 560,000 people every year entering the labor force. So we didn't create jobs for those people and the people who are previously unemployed. So that is the simple reason. We have to get our economy growing much faster than the 2.4% that it has grown. Now, if you look at the past, you can also divide South Africa into two halves. We grew by 3.6% during the first half, 94 to 2008, and the wheels came off during the second half from 2009 to 2022. And what has happened is that we've grown by 1.2% a year. The forecast for this year is 0.9% by the IMF and 1.2% next year. So we are in a dire situation. Unemployment will get worse over the next 2 years because we don't have a plan as a country to address this crisis. Yeah.
So when you say we don't have a plan, now we are talking in the midst of an election season. So we have an existing government. We could have a new type of government in 2 weeks' time, right? In terms of your assessment, just loosely, of the different economic growth policies of the different parties, do you get a sense that some of the parties have a plan? I'm not suggesting, we must vote for X or Y, but does it come through to say, wow, I see something there?
They haven't thought about it seriously. So let's start with the ANC. The ANC doesn't have a GDP target. This is a macroeconomic policy issue, Ashraf. They don't have a GDP growth target, which is the number one reason to create jobs. Number two, they don't have a jobs target. They've got a target for work opportunities, which is something else. So that's number one. ANC did not they've got it under Pillar 1, and it's a sorry attempt at coming with it. In fact, I don't even call it a jobs plan. The DA, number two party, has got 2 million jobs over 5 years. But if you look here, we have 12.1 million people. According to my estimate, 700,000 new entrants into the labor force during the next 7th administration. So this DA plan of 2 million people will not create even the jobs for the people who are entering the labor force, let alone the people who are already 12.1 million who are already unemployed. The EFF plan is quite interesting because it's got job targets, but for me, they don't add up. So the biggest jobs target is the one for a state-owned construction company, which I do support because the state spends a lot on construction. But the problem is they say it will create 4 million jobs. But currently, there are about 800,000 formal sector jobs in construction and about 600,000, according to the other survey, the enterprise survey, in the formal sector. Now, how can you create 4 million sector for half of the construction spending in the country? So they support maybe 400,000 jobs. So you can't increase it within the context of the current austerity policies towards 4 million jobs. It's completely impossible. And then there were other arguments about insourcing, for example, 1 million jobs in security and so on. But insourcing doesn't create new jobs. You know what I'm saying? It just shuffles new jobs. So I don't think the parties have thought thoroughly enough about this jobs crisis. I just think, it is absolutely unacceptable to be quite
Okay, so if you're saying the parties haven't thought about it, I mean, you've given me the top three in order, and there's probably many other smaller ones, but fine, just for this purpose of now, we'll put that on hold. Now, that's a big cause for concern. So then from your side as an economist, besides growing the economy, and I mean, you made the point, the economy has to grow at a rate faster than the population growth, otherwise we have a problem every single year, and the signs you've already mentioned are ominous. So outside of that, if we have to be innovative now and say, hold it, let's be truly innovative and think quickly so that we can change things in the next year like ASAP. What do you suggest? Based upon your experiences of other countries, maybe?
Yeah. There's three. So the global unemployment rate, by the way, Ashraf, is 5% according to the latest report. Mm-hmm. So ours is just way out of kilter with the global norm. So just quickly, there's three levers to address this unemployment crisis. Number one is that we had the NDP. It had targets for 5% growth, 5.4% growth, and 11 million jobs. But nobody was responsible for achieving this. The Reserve Bank only cares about inflation. National Treasury only cares about debt. So I'm saying we must make the two most important institutions in the economy have GDP growth and employment targets. Because if these two institutions institutions are not responsible for creating jobs, who will be? The second lever, we need to have industrial policies. Now, my calculation is that each percentage point increase in GDP results in 0.9% increase in employment. So we have to increase the employment that's called the employment multiplier. So we have to create industrial policies that increase the employment intensity of GDP growth. But our government has cut 3 billion rands from industrial incentives for industrial policy. The third thing, we have to increase public employment. We have 3 public employment programs: the Presidential Employment Stimulus, we have expanded public works, and the Community Works program. Now, the problem with this, they create 1.8 million work opportunities this year. Now, the problem is that the budget has cut 10 billion rands from these programs. So according to my calculations, they're going to create 900,000 work opportunities and about 400,000 full-time equivalent jobs. And then finally, it's embedded in the other proposals. If you look at the past 30 years, we have had a chronically low investment rate. If you look at any random country and you look at to understand why they're growing, you go to Tanzania, you go to Ethiopia, they have high investment rates, Ashraf. Our investment rate over the past 30 years has averaged about 16% of GDP. That is half the target in the NDP.
Yeah,
now, there was a period from 2003 to 2008 where public sector investment spending increased rapidly, and the economy grew fast, and we created 3.1 million jobs, and unemployment rate came down from 40.6 to 28.7. So the crisis is so huge. I don't believe in single solutions to the crisis, but if I had to take one, I would say we must increase spending on infrastructure. And South Africans must trust me. The minute we stop these insane austerity policies and start investing in our people and our infrastructure, we'll start creating jobs by the next quarter.
Okay, in spite of your austerity measures you talk about, in spite of many companies or institutions.
We must get rid of the austerity measures, because you can't have austerity and create jobs at the same time, because austerity reduces the growth of the economy.
Okay, I hear you. Here's the final thought, right? Let's reduce this now to a family conversation. Forget I sound like a family meeting with the president talking, but here's the reality in a family situation. There are people clearly who are listening to us now. Their family members are unemployed, and they are unemployed. Some of them are unskilled, some of them are skilled, and they've been unemployed for a long, long time, and they don't have money. They don't have, they can't make ends meet. What advice would you give them?
If you're in the education system, stay longer in the education system. If you're a young person, find a way of staying longer in the education system until the government changes these crazy policies if you're a young person. So now, I just have to mention something very important, because I've been listening to Minister Thulas Nxesi and the UIF and Panyaza Lesufi. They seem to think we have a skills problem. We do not. The skills mismatch theory of unemployment is a fallacy, because in the last quarter, I haven't looked at the figures for this quarter, there were 1 million unemployed graduates, and we don't have 12.1 million vacancies in the economy. Do you see what I'm saying? So we don't have a skills problem in the short term.
Okay,
the
I hear you.
problem we have is the growth of the economy. So if you're a young person, find a way to, stay in the education system longer.
Okay, but if you're not in education, and you're sitting at home, like this is my point. If you're sitting at home right now, how can we be innovative? What advice can we give them? There are people waiting for us to, touch a nerve on their pulse, because that's what they want.
Unfortunately, there's nothing positive I can say. Like in other countries, Ashraf, there's a high informal sector, but now we have big retail that takes up all the opportunities for in the informal sector. We've only got 3 million people in the informal sector. Many people in developing countries live off agriculture, but we've got this concentrated structure of production in the agriculture industry. So that explains some of it. So you can't say to unemployed people, go and start your business. And because that is completely there is no funding for small black SMEs. The big problem that I have the money that we give to black SMEs is insignificant, in terms of funding. And there's nothing, they don't have customers who can buy it because people don't have money.
They don't have the money.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Duma, let's leave it at that. Hopefully we'll have better news tomorrow, okay? Duma Klubule. But saying it as it is, and that's what we want to hear because it gets a sense of exactly what the feel is in terms of our national pulse.
Established in 1904, 120 years later, they're lifting their first ever Bundesliga title. Bayer Leverkusen finally made it. Yet, they still want to close the curtain with a win. While FC Augsburg intend to play their hearts out and finish the race with victory. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch the champs of the 2023-2024 season, Bayer Leverkusen versus FC Augsburg on Saturday, 18 May at 3 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Am I left or right-brained? I'm leaning right. However, I do have some left-brain tendencies. Perhaps I'm left-brained with right-brain tendencies. Am I overthinking this? I don't want to be caught underthinking it. Or maybe I'm overthinking about underthinking the overthinking. Which am I?
At RMB, the simple answer is both. When you need a thoughtful solution for financial complexity that doesn't make you choose, there are only 3 letters you need to know. RMB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Any person aggrieved by any political advertisement or political election broadcast that is broadcast by SAFM may lodge a complaint within 5 days from broadcast with the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, ICASA. To lodge your complaint, please contact ICASA's Compliance Department via telephone number on 012-568-3233. That's 012-568-3233. Or email broadcastingcompliance@icasa.org.za. That's broadcastingcompliance@icasa.org.za. Alternatively, complaintsccc@icasa.org.za. That's complaintsccc@icasa.org.za.
The SABC Fortune Combo radio stations, which includes SAFM, Lotus FM, and Radio 2000, seek the services of a freelance graphic designer who will collaborate with cross-functional teams to create visually compelling assets that align with our receptive brand identities and resonate with our target audiences. The minimum requirements for the position are a bachelor's degree or diploma in graphic design, visual arts, or related field, 2 to 4 years proven experience as a graphic designer with a strong portfolio showcasing a range of design projects. All interested candidates should submit their CVs and portfolio of evidence to vacancy@safm.co.za. Application closed on the 26th of May 2024. For more detailed info, visit www.safm.co.za or follow us on our social media pages at SAFM Radio.
SAFM, leading the conversation.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Always welcome audience or listener engagement. Here's one thing, Ashraf, the Economist is wrong about the central bank creating employment in its fiscal policy. That's responsible for employment. The central bank's role is to tame inflation. That comes from Lionel in Woodbank. Okay, let's move on to other things now, and we certainly focus on innovation and marketing as much as we can on this show. So here's one that you need to be very interested in, around you should be. That is that the video sharing platform Rumble is suing Google, arguing that the tech giant has monopolized the advertising technology space. I need to find out more about that, what that really means. Brendan Peterson is with me, tech editor of Reframed. Brendan, let's reframe this conversation. What's it about? Hi.
I like that. Yeah, this is a very interesting conversation to be having, especially considering Google I.O. kicks off in like an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so tell me more. What's the issue here?
So what Rumble is saying is that essentially is that Google is abusing its monopoly or its dominance in the digital advertising space, and it's using anti-competitive practices to sort of, help boost its digital advertising products and all of those sort of things. And it's interesting because if you look at sort of the stats where Google's advertising revenue boost is coming from, it's coming from YouTube. And obviously Rumble was created as an alternative to YouTube.
Yeah. But having said that, I mean, what are the numbers? I mean, I'm going to play with words. Is there a rumble in the jungle around this one year? Are they that big that, if you ask most people, Rumble, I think they may battle to know who they are.
Yeah, I mean, Rumble is very small. They're not a big name. This is also not the first time that they've sued Google. They actually just sued them a couple of months ago for similar sort of thing. But I mean, if you're looking at numbers, I don't have exact numbers for Rumble, but I can tell you in terms of Alphabet, obviously the owner of Google, its ad business rose 11%. So you're looking at like $65.5 billion compared to last year. And 16% of that is growth from YouTube.
So how much of that is that a Google monopolizing problem, or is it a case of just them being so innovative that they found ways to increase revenue? Because it's not just, the Rumbles that are losing out. I think, we could say even traditional media is losing out to that advertising space as well, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the way Google would like to position it, as we're giving people options, we've got innovative technology. But if you just look at the sort of bulk share of it, the biggest sort of advertising spend is in the US, and in the US, Google is the dominant force. We've got numbers putting them anywhere between 50 to 60% dominating the space in the US.
Yeah. Do you have any figures about South Africa? I mean, just as a comparison?
I've actually reached out to Google to try and get exact numbers from them. I haven't heard back. I don't have exact numbers, unfortunately, for South Africa. But I mean, globally, they are still the dominant force. Again, you're looking at easily, up to 40% globally of all digital advertising revenue going through them.
Yeah. I suppose maybe the numbers matter less, but maybe the big fundamental question right now is Google using its monopoly, maybe, and I'm going to use the word earned monopoly in the digital space to monopolize advertising technology? That means, are they deliberately forcing others out, or is it simply market forces at play here?
Well, I mean, the U.S. Justice Department certainly seems to believe that Google is abusing its dominance, because they also filed a lawsuit against Google last year. Exactly the same thing. And we've seen various instances of this pop up with different governments around the world. So it might be a fact that they are the largest, but it definitely feels like they are abusing that, with mobile, with all of these different platforms that they're so entrenched in, to sort of say, sure, there is an option, but really you're not going to get anything from that, so you might as well just go with us.
Yeah. What's the solution? What do you think?
Well, what is interesting is, while we're seeing all of this, there is a slowly growing trend, which is showing that there is a bit of a shift in the tides when it comes to digital advertising, because Gen Z, Gen Alpha that comes after that, they are shifting more towards platforms like TikTok, where obviously Google has no power. And there's a lot of advertising spend starting to shift towards these platforms. So I think as we see the rise of these platforms, as we see the rise of AI move into all these different spaces, I think that will start shifting it. But I think it is a massive dominance that they have, and it's going to take a long time for that to be lost.
And I think you're right about the massive dominance, but also the example you gave of TikTok, how in a relatively short period of time, TikTok has emerged as a major global player, right? And then advertising has followed suit. That means maybe the challenge to all of us, especially when we spoke about unemployment earlier on, is be innovative, be very, very innovative. Brendan Peterson, let's leave it at that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Much appreciated. Brendan Peterson, the tech editor of Refrain. In fact, maybe we'll get Brendan to tweet out some of the links to that conversation we just had. We'll have a podcast up of that as well in a few minutes' time. Let's get to the news headlines now. It's 5:30. Here's Greg House.
Thank you, Ashraf. A quick look at the headlines. The ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa has defended the NHI as part of government's efforts to ensure equality in the provision of healthcare. The IEC says it's comfortable with the controls it's put in place with regards to voting abroad. And a British woman who saved her twin sister from a crocodile attack in Mexico has been awarded a medal. More on that story and other news at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
A very good afternoon. The N1 moving into Pretoria stays heavy. We had an earlier crash which backed things up on the M1 North at the N4. Now that scene has been cleared, but it's been replaced very quickly by a multi-vehicle pile-up on the M1 between Rigel and Garsfontein. So the traffic stays backed badly halfway between John Foster and Boerta Avenue in Centurions, where you'll pick up the back of that. Major delays around Buccleuch today. It's a big crash scene on the N3 North going up into Buccleuch. So backlogs from Linksfield Road in Edenvale. That's a really significant delay, and it's a big enough crash to be holding things up coming the other way. So the N3 South going through Buccleuch down to Limbro Park, sitting court having a look, and behind that the N1 South is backed right through to Allendale Road. Some real problems getting through mid-ramp into Buccleuch because of that backlog on the N3 South, which is just really a sort of onlooking delay, but the big queue there is running north today. Durban, real slow go around the Rossborough, Umbilo and Bayhead areas. It is starting to ease, but there's a really significant sort of parking up of truck traffic, which is preventing everything else from moving through so freely. And Cape Town, no change apart from routes getting heavier. This is all stems from the lost load incident. N2 outbound at Robert Sobukwe. Most of the lanes are closed, just one lane to filter past. The backlog starts in the CBD on Nelson Mandela Boulevard. All the routes that feed into that N2, like Philip Kusana, M5 South, N7, Jake Scoville Drive, Rappenberg Road, the Forest Drive option out of Pinelands. Any route that feeds into the N2 is jamming heavily because of the significant delay on the N2 itself. If you need to get flights to the airport, you need to come with a proper plan to give yourself plenty of time to get through that or look at some alternatives. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Alrighty.
Right, let's talk sport. Yep.
Yeah, let's start things off with boxing. 2 changes have been made to the new Boxing South Africa board that was announced today by Sports Minister Zizi Godwa. Dr. Koketso Tsebe and Dr. Luvuyo Precious Bayeni are the new additions to the 7-member executive. Other members who were named last year, Sakiwe Sodo, who is the only one who served on the controversial previous board, which finished its term in December. Chairpersons Fiso Shongwe, Romy Titus, Nandi Mheshe, and Lukolo September. The board is on a 3-year term starting immediately. In football, Sekhukhune United have placed head coach Lekgonola Siyema on special leave with just 2 DStv Premiership matches to go. Siyema has been in charge of a total 21 games, winning 8, drawing 9 and losing only 4. And they are 4th on the log. Well, the club are yet to give clarity on the reason why the former Lesotho international will not be on the bench for the remaining fixtures against Amazulu as well as Chippa United. Then Mamelodi Sundowns are aiming for an invisible season but face a tricky Royal AM side today. The Brazilians have won all 6 previous meetings against Royal with 17 goals scored, and if they avoid defeat tonight, it will be their 50th league matches unbeaten. For Royal AM, Sabelo Stole and Zukile Mkhize are out on injury, and Sundowns welcome back Ronan Williams from suspension. Elsewhere, Pep Guardiola believes that Manchester City is in front of a great history as they prepare for a tricky clash against Tottenham Hotspur tonight. City, who are chasing a 4th straight Premier League crown, are 1 point behind Arsenal. If City win, they will be able to seal the championship with a win at home to West Ham on the final day, while Arsenal host Everton. Guardiola's side have scored 28 goals in their past 7 league matches and conceded just 5. Then in tennis, American Coco Gauff has confirmed that she's been trying to implement technical changes to her service, and that's why she's been inconsistent on her serve throughout the clay season. So far, Gauff has made 35 double faults in 3 matches at the Italian Open, but the world number 3 says that the technical changes to her serve only need time to settle, and she's already seeing some sort of improvement. In rugby, Ruan Pienaar has admitted that he has mixed feelings as he prepares for the final game of his career when the Cheetahs host Griquas in an SA Cup clash in Bloemfontein. The veteran player will hang up his boots after the ongoing SA Cup and take up the position as Free State under-21 backline and attack coach. Then finally, in cricket, Bangladesh included experienced all-rounder Shakib Al Hassan in their 15-man squad for the T20 World Cup in the West Indies and United States in June. The team will be led by batsman Najmul Hossain Shanto, who was named skipper in all three formats of the game this year amid uncertainty over the availability of Shakib, who is dealing with an eye problem. Bangladesh are in World Cup Group D with Sri Lanka, South Africa, the Netherlands and Nepal in the June 1st to the 29th event.
Yeah, sorry, you wanted to say something?
No.
I'm just commenting about the retirement of Ruan Pinard. It's always, when stellar players in their sports come to the end, there's so much nostalgia. I'm just thinking someone listening now is like, that's my player.
Right.
Yeah.
Back in the days, he was just amazing. But at least he'll still stay in rugby as a coach.
At least. Okay.
At least. With that said, it's a wrap from my side. Ke nna Tumeng Kgapele, Modimo ke yo.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 106.2 FM in Thohoyandou.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Tell you what, if you're in Joburg, you'd be really concerned that Joburg Library has been shut down for a long time. There's a new Joburg Inner City Partnership initiative around that issue of the library and other things we'll talk about coming up later on. And I'll take some of your calls. I need to do that. Let's, however, talk about the markets now, as always, with the Money Market or Money Web Market update. Not with Jimmy. He's day off for whatever reason, but the markets don't stop with him or without him. Duru Ramela, it's your chance. Hi.
Hello, thank you so much, Ashraf. Good evening to everyone. And we're going to be speaking to Henku Kriel, MoneyWeb's contributor this evening, on how, Henku, the markets fared today.
Yes, hello, Dudu. Good evening to you, and also hello to Ashraf and to me, and good evening to all the listeners. Yeah, Dudu, I think it was relatively a quiet day worldwide on all of the markets. I think we can expect some excitement tomorrow, because tomorrow, around about this time, we'll know the latest American or US inflation figure. And we all know that they're targeting an inflation figure of 2%. Currently, the US inflation figure is sitting at 3.8%, and the market is expecting a figure tomorrow coming out of around about 3.6%. So anything below 3.6% will be welcome. So let's see where that goes. So I think we'll see a lot more excitement tomorrow than we did today. At the moment, the Dow Jones and the S&P 500 trading about 0.1% up. There's the Nasdaq trading about 0.4% stronger. European stocks, they finished quite mixed, with the FTSE 100 as well as the CAC 40, those two gaining 0.2% today, but the DAX in Germany losing 0.2% today. And then a similar picture here by us, where the JSE's all-share index lost 0.1% today, and it finished at a lower level of 78,633 points. The resources index was 0.6% weaker. The financial index lost 1.2% today. But the industrial index tried to make up for all of this by finishing 1.1% stronger at the end of the day. And the reason for this industrial index finishing so strong, or at least a lot higher today, was because of Prosus and Naspers. Prosus finished 4.6% up, and followed by Naspers, which gained 4% today. So those two companies had a wonderful day, and they are riding on the success and on the back of Tencent. There's also some of the other larger companies on the JSE, like Glencore, that had a terrific day, finishing 3.7% stronger, and also BHP, which gained 3%, followed by Richemont and AB InBev. Those two finished the day 1.5% stronger. But one of these 10 largest companies on the JSE did not have such a great day, like Anglo. Anglo lost 4.6%. That's almost 5% down at the end of the day. Other companies that also gave poorer performances today were Amplats, the MTN Group. Those two each lost 8.5%. 8.5% is quite a lot. It's almost, that's quite a number. And then as well, Discovery, as well as Alphaman and Sasol, they each lost 5%, followed by Netcare and Vodacom. Those two companies finished the day 3.5% weaker. But let's get back to some of the companies that gave stronger performances. Those were Kumba, as well as Harmony. They each gained 3% today. And there's also equities that finished today 4.5% stronger. Now over to the commodities market. The price of gold is currently $2,352 an ounce. Silver is sitting at $28.50. Platinum trading at $1,030. And palladium $982 an ounce. The price of Brent crude currently $82.40 a barrel. And then the rand looking very similar to how it did yesterday, throughout the day as well as today. But the rand looking quite up. But as I said, the picture might change around about this time tomorrow when we know the US inflation figures. So if we have a look, you'll pay at the moment 18 Rand 40 for a US dollar, 23 Rand 18 for a pound, 19 Rand 93 for a euro, and 12 Rand 19 for an Australian dollar. And Bitcoin is still maintaining its level of more or less $61,500, but that is still 1,165,000 Rand. And Jim, forgive me, that is how the markets performed today.
Thank you so much, Henku Kriel. He's MoneyWeb's contributor. And here's what you can look forward to at the top of the hour, come 6 o'clock on SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb. You're going to be talking all things unemployment. The picture's not looking all that good. It's not getting better. As there's unemployment rate rising to 32.9%. We also take a look at results from Equity Property Fund. You would have heard Henku speak about it and how it closed today. Dubula Property Fund as well, reporting a 9% revenue growth in their rental income remaining under pressure, though. We're also going to be speaking about all things solar, right, with the prices of electricity quite expensive, load shedding staving off for now at least. What do you need to know if you're looking to change it up in your household? Speaking of households, if you're looking to buy property, we're also going to be speaking all things what you need to know when it comes to buying a home for the very first time. We're going to be speaking to Uber Home Loans, and that's what you can look forward to come 6 p.m. Ashraf, it's back to you.
Okay, perfect. Looking forward to your show because I will certainly listen to it on my way home. Absolutely, I do. Thanks for that. Right, more to come. I'm going to pick out some of your callers. By the way, here's a comment from someone, Tafara, saying, Ashraf, the reason potential voters rate unemployment higher than crime as a problem is because many South Africans wrongly believe the former, meaning unemployment, is a direct cause of the latter, meaning crime. That's my words. Compared with many poorer neighboring countries from Tafara. Well, you got us thinking, Tafara.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha.
Right, now the attorney Yunus Mohammed was detained and held in solitary confinement, but it didn't stop him fighting apartheid. In the mid-1980s, he was a founder of the United Democratic Front and helped to defend the 22 activists charged in the Delmas treason trial. On May the 29th, the Kagiso Trust's Remember Me initiative encourages South Africans to honour Mohammed's memory by exercising the right that he fought so hard for, the right to vote. Hashtag Remember Me.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Okay, let's get to your calls. We'll try and get a few in before we get to the next conversation around Joburg and some developments in that city. Stan is in Soshanguve. Hi, Stan.
Hi, how are you, sir?
I'm good indeed. Right, go. What do you want to get off your chest?
I want to get off this thing of crime that's happening in Pretoria.
Okay.
This thing is very, I'm studying at TUT, which is not far from Soshanguve Crossing, which is a mall that was robbed yesterday.
Okay.
And when you are there, at a walking distance to Block UU, where the 5-year-old was killed.
Oh, my.
Yeah, yes, sure. Yesterday, we just went from school before I could go to school because our NEFSA's money is in. So we said, let's go to Crossing and get our NEFSA's money before we go to school. And while we are in the shop, in sports scene, in the shop, when we were trying to get maybe jerseys and stuff, because those guys came and they locked us in. They locked everyone who was in, and they robbed. And remember, some of us, especially, we can't run because I'm a paraplegic. I'm on an electric wheelchair. So we had to watch all those things happen. And after they took our phone, they took the laptops that we have. And remember, that laptop we bought by NEFSA's, we come from far, more of us. So they robbed our future. Instead of just robbing the shop, also some of us, we were robbed of our future because I'm a paraplegic, so I won't be able to attend. For me to be able to attend, I'll be able to need another special laptop that will cost 13 to 14,000.
Yeah. Well, Stan,
So
I mean,
now,
it's such a horrible story, Stan. And the reality, I mean, you spoke about yourself and how that's changed. And then you talk about the 5-year-old killed in the same area as you are. And, everybody else, I hear of a businessman from, I think, Dawood stores or something in Joburg, or Benoni being killed, hijacked and then killed like one day later. Like, the problem, Stan, I'm sure you'd agree that there's just no stopping. There is no stopping.
There's just no stopping. Today I have to, because I went to the shops and they said, no, the only people that will get reimbursed is those who, they're giving us to I said, I only need a laptop so that I can study. And they said, no, you need to go out of your way and get a laptop. But I understand. But what I don't understand is that why is people these days, especially as black people, we don't have this thing of saying this person is on a wage, he can't even move. Why do I rob him? Or why do I rob an old lady on the street? Why do I kill a 5-year-old? It's very painful. It's very painful. I had to ask for donation from shops and stuff. They said, please help me. So even now, all I'm asking is if there's anyone who's listening who can just get me a laptop, even if it's a second, and so that I can continue.
Well, I'll tell you what. Drop your details with my producer, and if you are able to, if somebody wants to reach out to you, maybe we can. I have no promises. You never know. Stan, thanks for that call, and I'm really sorry about what's happened to you. Okay, really sad. Let's get another call. Sipo in Joburg. Hi, Sipo.
Hi, Ashraf.
Yeah, good talking to you. Go ahead. Your point.
Wait, your call has been
Sipo?
placed on hold.
Oh, Sipo, you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Yeah, fantastic. Ashraf, man, I was listening to your conversation earlier on.
Yeah.
With a gentleman that was on his way to the airport.
Yes, the Ibrahim, the guy from the Muslim grouping in Europe, I think it is, right? Yeah?
Yeah. I was a bit concerned about your line of questioning, and then it actually sounded as if you were decampaigning the ANC. That gentleman is from an interest group, so they basically have an interest.
Yes.
And that interest is Palestine. And so then when they say vote for the ANC, because of the interest in Palestine, it's quite clear what they mean. I mean, for you to ask them about service delivery issues and what, it's neither here nor there, and it sounds as if you decampaign the ANC. And last week, I was listening to you when you were speaking about the flag.
Yeah.
It actually sounded like you were offering a defense for the DA, If someone is mad about burning of the flag, they're mad about burning the flag. They don't have to be both,
Wow. Okay, so I hear you. I'm going to just push you because of time. Firstly, let's start with the flag issue, right? I've been very clear that I think and I posted a video about it, and if people hear it correctly, they'll see that I said you can be angry about the flag. So I'm actually concurring that you can be angry, and you should be angry about the burning of the flag symbol. That's the first part of it, right? On the issue of the Muslim grouping, well, I'll tell you why I differ, because I think they've specifically said, remember, it comes down to South Africa. It's a South African issue because they raised it in this country here. They haven't said it somewhere else, right? They specifically said that they're calling on the community, and then he said Muslim community, to vote for the ANC. And my job, therefore, as a host, right, is to determine why the Muslim community, which he then explained what he did. And then I also said, but by the way, the same party you're referring to has got many other issues which the party themselves had admitted. And then he then conceded that. So I just think I did my job as far as I'm concerned. But I hear you. I think it's just, Sipo?
Yeah.
Okay. Your line's crackling away, and that's not because we agree or disagree. I don't know why. So I'll leave it at that. But listen, I'm absolutely fine with sometimes we're going to differ. But I'm repeating that point that I think my job is to ask the questions that I think a broader audience needs to know. And considering that he linked it to the ANC specifically and not general parties, I thought for me was very, very interesting. Well, not just me, my entire production team. Let's see if we can, probably there's a WhatsApp, there's some WhatsApps we may be able to take very quickly. Let's see if we can do that. Because I'm also really concerned about the issue of joblessness and the worst feeling in the world. Here's another.
Ashraf, life, being unemployed, it's the worst feeling ever. Fortunately enough, some of us had an opportunity to join the presidential empowerment youth program that only ran for a certain amount of time, like I think it was 7 months. You know, as soon as you receive your last salary, it's like you took two steps forward and you're taking 10 steps backwards. It's just life being unemployed as a youth, being qualified, having multiple degrees. It's the worst feeling ever. You dream from because.
Okay, there's another that I think I can take, just the last one perhaps for now, right? Yep.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I'm sending this WhatsApp note with a very, very hurt and broken heart. You know, this government must just accept they failed in terms of crime. We have become the laughing stock of the nation, of all other nations or countries. For 30 years, they failed to deter this crime. They are punching above their weight. What can make them now win this fight against crime after elections? They are lying. You can't fail for 30 years and then in 48 hours after election you think there's something you can do. It's totally lies. They failed. It's Tabumanyige here.
Okay, that's another opinion. Let's talk about Joburg and what's going on in that city.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Well, I live in the city of Joburg, and we all know it's the economic hub of the country. So when that city falls short of, South Africa's world-class African city, we ought to be concerned. But there are developments in place to try and rebuild, right? So Ismail Makabela is with us, the Johannesburg Inner City Partnership Chairman. Ismail, appreciate your time. You're live on the National Pulse. Hi.
Thanks very much, Ashraf.
Thank you. So, what are the plans in terms of this inner city partnership around reviving key aspects of that city?
Ashraf, you are right. We are a partnership for a good reason. There are a lot of problems in the inner city which none of the actors, be it government, business, or civil society, can tackle on its own. It requires a concerted effort where we have to deal with all the difficult problems such as crime. You find transport, public transport, pedestrian transport, people walking, and so on. So you look at hijacked buildings or illegally occupied buildings. You look at fires which are happening in the city, like it is now becoming a tradition that every week there's a smoke and fire. So we look at the inner city as a hub for economic development, social development. There are universities which are situated in the inner city, headquarters of various businesses. Of course, we are still faced with a situation that some of them are relocating, but through the partnership, we are drawing them to know that the inner city of Johannesburg is a national heritage as well. That is, if you talk about the history of the economic development of South Africa, you can't talk about that without focusing on what is happening.
All right, so I hear you. Here's the bottom line to it, right? And let's talk about the issue around one of your campaigns, which is the walkable network. The reality is there are many parts of Johannesburg, downtown city, you cannot walk.
It's not true. We decided on the walkable network because we felt that people staying in the inner city are trapped in their own residence. And so in order to ensure that anyone coming in the city, if I were to advise you, Ashraf, and you intended to walk in the inner city and you asked me which is the safest street, I'll say none. But through the walkable network, we would like to create safe space where people can walk from the east to the west, but they can also be able to traverse the city to the civic center, Braamfontein, and also south of the inner city. So that is one project which we feel we are all united, be it business, be it city improvement districts, be it Johannesburg inner city property owners and managers. were all agreed that we can make that work. It is one project which could actually employ people, but it could also promote business and the quality of life in the inner city.
Is it? I mean, are there signs of it working? Because ultimately, you made the point about safe spaces. It's absolutely key. If spaces are not safe, people only live there or work there when they have no choice. Otherwise, they will not.
Ashraf, this is working. Because if I may focus you on city improvement districts, which have brought together different area people who are concerned with various spaces, you'll find that within city improvement districts, you can walk, you can relax, you can recreate safely. The popular examples, I will take you to areas such as the First National Bank area, the Standard Bank area, but also areas in the east. Where there's a city improvement district, there is life. And I always think that if these initiatives by business and civil society were not existing, we would be in a more terrible situation in the inner city of Johannesburg.
Well, we certainly want it to work. I mean, absolutely. I love my city, but we go there far less than when we were lighties, so I certainly hope that works out, right? Just quick one about the library. What about the big Joburg City Library?
The library was closed, and then I think around 2021, we understand that it needed to be renovated, refurbished, but this becomes a permanent closure, and then one cannot understand why it can't be used partially and in a programmed way. So we find that now stakeholders in the inner city, coming from the Johannesburg Crisis Alliance, the Johannesburg Heritage Foundation, and all of us, readers and writers, the artists, feel that library must be open because it's a center of knowledge, center of which actually harbors many memories, but also it could open doors to.
Well, we want it soon, and we want it up and ready very soon. Ishmael Makabela, thank you for your time. Joburg Inner City Partnership Chairman. That needs to happen. Couple of quick calls, in fact, WhatsApp notes that I can take. One on the issue that we discussed earlier on about Palestine and Israel.
On the question the representative was asking the guy from the Muslim community, why only are they advocating for the ANC? I think it's quite clear that most political parties in South Africa are for Israel and not against Israel. The only vocal political parties are the African National Congress and the EFF. Thank you.
Well, I think, the problem with the word most, it's a massive generalization. Okay, I hear what you're saying, but it is a generalization. Probably you need to look at parties and numbers. You may well be surprised where you sit on that issue. Let's end with this. I mean, there's a couple of good news stories here. One is, Solly Mohammed trying to call without success, saying, I want to help that young paraplegic whose laptop was stolen. Please call me urgently. So we can't call Solly now, but we can certainly connect the two of you guys. Solly, that's just fantastic. I mean, that's really what the National Pulse is all about, isn't it? Getting us racing in the right way. And to end with, there's a fascinating story that I just want to confirm about UJ, right? The University of Johannesburg. So UJ, as part of the Times Hired awards, they've been now ranked number one in both Africa and South Africa in the 2024 Times Hired Young University rankings. That's fabulous, isn't it? And when we talk about what gets pulses racing and the mood of a nation, it's not just the negatives. A positive like that, like champions in their space, is exactly what it is. Thanks to the team, as always, KG, Tumi, Keys, Vusani, as well as Temba, all of them part of this team that makes up the National Pulse. We'll do it again tomorrow. Right now, it's 6 o'clock. It means time for Grecos.
Thank you again, Ashraf. In this news update, Ramaphosa defends the NHI and the IEC clarifies voting abroad. Good evening. The ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa has defended the NHI as part of government's efforts to ensure equality in the provision of health care. He was addressing dozens of business people, mainly from the Muslim community in Centurion, south of Pretoria. The President is expected to sign the much-awaited NHI bill into law tomorrow. However, Business Unity SA has vowed to challenge the law in court, saying it's not implementable and damaging to the country's healthcare sector. The DA is also opposing the bill, saying it's not affordable and will go all the way to the Concourt on the matter. But Ramaphosa says the bill will go through, whether certain people like it or not.
The NHI is one of those focus areas which is going to help poor people. And now the opposition on NHI is coming from well-to-do and rich people. This is what often happens. The haves don't want the have-nots to benefit from what they have been having. And we are saying through NHI, all our people must have equality. There must be equality of healthcare in our country. And I know it drives fear into the hearts of many. And believe you me, we are going to have equality. Whether people like it or not, that's what we are going to have.
The IEC says it's comfortable with the controls it's put in place with regards to voting abroad. This weekend, more than 76,000 voters living outside the country are expected to cast their votes for the 2024 elections. Chief Electoral Officer Sai Mamabolo.
All such special votes are first placed in an unmarked envelope, which is then inserted into a second envelope marked with a voting station, voters' particulars, for verification on the list of approved special votes. The envelope is then placed into a secure